but the oil tanks, this is our existing building here. This is the new addition. The oil tanks are actually right in this location. So we're able, and this is what the site plan is showing, a little access drive here for deliveries. So rather than change the kitchen and move this door around like we had talked about at the last meeting, we feel it's best to keep it as we had it shown before. I know there's several people looking at our kitchen design, so for the schematic design set that we're issuing next week, we'll have a final, but if there are any comments from anyone else, it'd be good to get this week so we can incorporate them into the design. What's that?
Greg, you're on.
Yeah, I've already met with all of the kitchen staff and
Okay.
the director for that. And
Great.
what I sent you is kind of what they're looking for.
Yep. And I know Elena's husband too is in the business and he was gonna take a look too, so.
I'll follow up with her.
Okay. There was some talk, I think, about a bathroom here getting demolished. And we need to just connect with Sean again to see if that's really required or not, because when we were value engineering everything down, we didn't include that kind of in our GMP, so we just need to look to make sure that it's really needed. I mean, it's a contingency item.
Existing kindergarten area, is that where you're putting?
It's in the grade 4 classroom. There's a bathroom, I think, right down there. Right, the simplest thing to do is just leave it, but.
Off the fixtures and put a shelf in there if you
Right.
want to make it.
Right. So that's a scope item, not a big one, just details. So we're getting really down to the nitty-gritty of details. The school resource officer, we're trying to figure out the level of security at this main entrance if we're adding film to the exterior and what that should be, so we'll be contacting him for that. We also need to verify the size of the maintenance and PE sheds out on the site.
I think we did that previously, but I can't find those.
Okay, we can look at notes.
And we're looking to replace those?
Yes.
Yes, because we need that storage capacity. One is entirely full of bicycles that are used in PE, and so we want to maintain those, and the other is for
Yeah,
maintenance.
because I met with the guys. They have a huge storage problem.
Then for the nurse, we just need to verify the size of the new beds. Are they standard beds, we're assuming? And the bariatric lift, what sort of lift that is, if it needs any electrical, I don't think, but needs any sort of
I'm
lift.
sorry?
The bariatric lift, I'm assuming it's a
In the nurse's office?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I think
a
it's
mobile.
portable,
Yeah, okay.
It is
Yep.
portable, so it's not one that's hung off
Right.
the structure that we're going to get into.
Yeah. So other than that, we're just going to town with the engineers and the structural engineer and doing casework layouts and specifications. We're actually gonna have a spec for schematic design, so big book. Any questions on this? I did connect with Brad Mosquito from Ty and Bond, and he just today sent his updates. So he's getting all the existing conditions verified on his site plans. He's updating and clarifying all of the proposed sites, so it's going to be a pretty strong schematic civil set.
Ingrid, the electric service, are we gonna have to take down a line and move it, or move a line?
We are,
Okay.
because it's coming from, I believe, do you?
Yeah, the existing electrical service comes from a pole that's approximately here and runs basically right here.
Yeah.
So the addition will sit on top of it, so we're planning to relocate that.
Should show it here now. Right here, yeah, utility pole. Electric overhead.
Well, this
To the
overhead that's
portables.
shown is feeding the portables.
Right.
This pole that's here is the pole that feeds the school.
Right.
And I can only assume that they just ran it the shortest distance between the 2 points.
Does it feed anything beyond it, or is that an end point?
That, I believe, is in the utility line. I believe that's an end pole.
Do we think that that's the best ultimate place for it?
Yeah.
It was part of what we considered in choosing this design, as I recall, right?
Right.
That we wouldn't have to to relocate that
Well,
completely.
Yeah, originally we were over here, but there were so many utilities there, that's what shifted us to do the addition around to minimize the utilities that we were in.
Just so I can orient myself, it's just before the cemetery or just after it?
Before. The cemetery's here, that's the pole.
Okay.
In the near future, Eversource will get involved in this also, because they'll have some say in what they want to do and what we can do. It's a little early, but soon that will be happening, so that we can get them on the same page. What's going to probably happen before they'll talk very much to any of us is the town will be writing them a check. Usually it's small early on for them. They want to make sure they understand the project's serious. And they won't necessarily give us a lot of information or a lot of their time before that. But we'll start the process, start the work order, and we'll keep you up to date.
So you'll prompt us about the appropriate time to.
We'll let you know once we make some contact and at least start the thing rolling. Because it will be two separate work orders, one each school. Both will end up with new services.
So does it make sense to hop to mechanical, electrical of this school and then do the other one?
That's fine.
Sure, well, I'll start by passing some things around. And I apologize, I kind of stapled everything together here, so you'll get the high school and the elementary school together. But certainly we can talk about them as individuals. So what I've done, and as Ingrid mentioned, we will be, as part of the schematic submission, toward the end of this week, and you'll probably see it by next week, you'll have a more detailed write-up. Hank is passing around now a preliminary schematic design overview that'll kind of give you a flavor for how we're going to lay out the format. But basically what I've done is try to establish some bullet items on the 11 by 17 sheets to give you an idea what we're planning for mechanical and plumbing upgrades for the building. And the A120 sheet, which I've stolen Ingrid's plan because we don't even have our sheets set up fully yet. So basically what we've laid out is you can see the existing building and the two proposed additions. And in the text blocks, I've kind of described in bullet form what we're planning. And I'm going to let Hank kind of go through these bullets because he's obviously a lot more familiar with the project than I am. But it'll start to give you a flavor and open up some discussion points, I think, for the mechanical schematics.
And this other handout, this review that it complements this. Some things may be repeated, but it's emphasized on the drawing. But maybe I'll start going through this here, from the fire protection on through. Basically, the entrance is in the west, right, northwest corner.
Did you do this one for each, or is this a combination?
That's one. That's the elementary only.
Okay.
Yeah, and the high school separate. You can make notes on that and stuff because
that's
some of
great.
this,
Just wanted to make
some of this may need clarification. I may be wrong on some of the stuff, but I'll incorporate the correct stuff in the SD.
First section is the elementary school.
Yeah, it should be. Do you have the picture on yours?
Yeah, it says
Okay.
elementary.
Yeah, elementary up
Oh,
here.
no, just elementary.
Yeah. So there's an existing sprinkler with two zones, and on this, I'm not sure exactly why they did it, but it is set up that way, and it's a fairly new system, and the footprint, the new footprint, I believe, is like, with the additions, under 80,000 square feet, if I'm correct. So we're safe with the two existing zones that we have for the additions.
So just to expand on that a little bit, basically what NFPA 13 says is a single sprinkler riser will cover up to 52,000 square feet of building. So essentially with two risers in the building that currently exists, we can do up to 104,000 square feet. So as Hank says, we're covered for the additions. We don't have to add risers.
risers.
You just extend out the
We
existing.
just
Right,
need to extend
right.
the
And-
mains, correct.
And the reason I didn't add all that back in is because the assessment went into, that we did, said it was, you know, so many square feet and what NFPA allows and stuff, but, you know, that has the background information on that. But, so in construction phasing, the existing sprinkler, you know, would remain in service, I see. Modifications could be made to anything that need to be made in the renovated area, which the kitchen's probably the heavier area. These other additions, it can be constructed at that time with provisions for tying in and charging, you know, tying into the existing system when the additions are complete. And I think that's about.
But we haven't done any assessment, like, have we actually looked at any existing drawings, the main, say, coming down this hallway?
Right.
Is it large enough that we can tie
Well,
to the
that's-
main, or we don't know that yet?
We don't know that. It may, I think I said, should be renovated time, new sprinkler systems, not in the existing. I think
But
it might.
There could be a big difference if it's tying existing back here, or tying existing here.
Right, and my other write-up, I had that the mains maybe need to be upsized in some areas of this, in order to accommodate. This one here, I'm not so nervous about, but this one down here may be, but that will have to be addressed. And
Yeah, because this, you're right, this one's a little easier.
Yeah.
The Sprinkler risers in here, you know, running the main to get there is easy.
Right.
This is
Right.
it's the same with anything mechanically from the boiler room. If anything that's coming down this hallway
Right.
isn't sized right, it's all the way back to the school.
I mean, the good news is we're not changing the hazard classification of the building. So essentially, all we may be doing is moving the remote hydraulically most remote point a little bit further away from the entrance. But basically, you only need to calculate one area going off at a time, as you know. So the total flow requirements aren't likely to change for the system. It would only be any extra piping may add a little bit of friction to it. So once we get into the design development and we have the more recent, I guess, hydrant flow testing from the city, so that we know exactly what the residual and static pressures are in the flows, then, and we know exactly where the most hydraulic or remote areas are gonna end up based on the renovation plans, then obviously we'll be able to talk
Have we asked
more
for
intelligently about that.
I don't remember if we did or not.
in the schematic write-up I have that
Do we want to ask?
yeah,
We'll need those for
Yeah.
sure as we get into design.
yeah, for each school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'd be you, Greg, and stick your name on that.
What am I doing? I'm sorry, I was writing notes on this stuff.
Hydrant flow test for each school.
What's that?
Hydrant flow test for each school.
Welcome to the team.
Firefighter, especially once school's out, I don't think we may need
No.
so much this time of year. It's the right time of year.
Yeah, definitely. Winter's not a good time
And
to
then
ask.
shouldn't, someone from Ekman or someone check the pipe sizes if that's a question?
Wasn't that the sprinkler consultant when we talked about
That was for the high school.
Oh, that was
I'll
for the
get to
junior
that.
senior
I
That
can
was
get
more
to
of a
that.
conditional assessment.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the high school's a whole
got
different
more-
deal.
yeah.
It's a different.
Here.
This is
you're able to
straightforward. This,
find,
plus this system is fairly new. I think it's only a few years old.
Yeah. Did you find Superior did that? You know? Did you be able to, we checked the
I would
tags.
assume he probably.
Superior did,
They
the
did
high school.
I don't know if they did the elementary.
Yeah, I gotta,
Let's do a little checking, because we might be able to get a copy of the drawings
I think we have the drawing probably.
from the sprinkler.
So whose name am I sticking on that one?
Us, Ekman. If anybody, if you find the drawings, just let us know whose name's on them,
Okay.
what sprinkler company's on them, and then we'll make a call.
That's on your list. That one I am volunteering for, because the pictures are all in your office, or nearly.
okay, so to move along to the plumbing systems. Oh, the mechanical, oh, that's right, I get the mechanical room layouts.
More handouts.
Well, we only got the
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
limited hard copies,
Yeah.
so.
We can share.
Yeah, we're one
You can
year-
pass it around as I speak, because this is the boiler room proposed layout for the elementary that will come around, but there's an existing 2-inch cold water, domestic cold water service coming in that mechanical room that you'll see is located, and that's appearing, once I do final plumbing count and calcs, but it appears to be of adequate size to handle the additional bathrooms that we're going to be having here.
Can you go on that line?
I can't hear you,
The
son.
two-inch line,
Yeah.
we know how it comes across the site. The site
It
plan
feeds,
we're looking at,
it comes in this corner here, so I imagine it's going to come around the back.
So it's gonna have to get rerouted
Yeah.
around the addition. Okay.
Yeah, and exactly. So also in the mechanical room, it's proposed, based on the assessment and everything, that we'll be adding 2 domestic hot water maker. They'll be indirect off of the boilers. Viesmann's are going to be like basis the design manufacturer. If anytime you have other manufacturers you'd prefer, just let me know and I can make them basis of design. Typically, right now they have a 60-gallon electric water heater, which I was going to copy for this design, the same thing, so when the boiler's off in the summertime, you just have your summer use. Domestic cold water, hot water piping, everything appeared to be in decent condition in this. So that will remain in use. Only modifications for any renovations. The new piping in the additions and kitchen will probably be copper. We also allow PEX tubing on our designs for runouts into walls and things. It makes it easier sometimes. So in construction phasing for the plumbing, the water entrance will remain, and I think there should be minimal interruption to it in accommodating any renovation work, or the tie-ins should be simple, again, because they're done in blocks with the additions. We'll have to look at the water serving this wing to the remote area. I mean, I may have to upsize piping for that if it's not adequate.
Yeah, it's not too much down there.
No,
Give it
it's
bathrooms.
just, there's four bathrooms, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're okay to run with, I haven't done that field work yet. So sanitary rainwater, I think I recommended scoping on that school as well, but I don't know if that's planned or gonna be done, or, but thought that somebody along the line when I was over there said that that one had potential for
was the
sags.
Potential dip
Yeah.
somewhere down.
Yeah,
Towards the end of the hallway was the.
Yes, towards the
So-
addition.
Sanitary or the stormwater?
I'd do both while you're at it, I'd do both.
I wasn't aware of the stormwater,
Yeah.
but if we're doing one. we
The
can
dip
do-
down at the end where we're putting the addition, or the other end?
It's down that hallway. I believe it's like actually midway in that hallway, if I recall. So you have that gang bathroom, and then you go down, it's probably just past the door dividing area there.
Going towards the kindergarten?
Correct. It's in that area, give or take 10 feet.
What's the nature of this? This is a failed pipe, or?
I think it's just everything settled underneath
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it buckled a little bit.
Yeah.
Are we having backup problems now?
No.
No, but I think it came to light a few years ago when there had been at that time.
Right, what happened is that when they put in the bathroom into the new kindergarten room, they connected to the storm pipe, not the sewer pipe, and when it rained, it came up through the toilet.
Oh.
Oh my God.
And then when they had scoped it, they found the dip in there.
But
I think
it's nev-
I think
but
Roto
that dip's
Rooter did.
never given you any problem.
Since then, no. After they corrected it, we haven't had an issue since.
My guess is you're gonna stay with, if it's in the middle of that hallway, halfway down, you're gonna wanna stay away from it anyway. It's not giving you backups.
Yeah.
If you're getting problems from a different store, but if you haven't had to have it, it hasn't been backed up.
It was just one of the things identified when we met with the facilities managers back last fall.
Right.
Yeah, and
as an area to scope.
since I've been there, I haven't heard anything. I don't know if the previous, I could ask Brian that.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
don't
where
think-
the
yeah.
information came from,
Yeah.
and there hasn't been anything since.
Yeah.
We may have covered this, and I'm just forgetting, but we don't know precisely what the cause of it, we just think it's settling, or?
The cost to do the scoping?
No, the Cause.
Oh, cause. Well, like you said, if they filled their settlement,
Yeah.
typically they'll put pipe hangers under slab a lot of times, so that doesn't happen. And if they didn't do it on that project,
Right, it's
You
not a
get that.
structural slab, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't have expected them to hang them from the slab.
Is it-
If you did bring in, based on the water that we see on the outside, I'm not surprised if they moved a little bit, over time, but if you've never had a backup, then I don't think it's too much of an issue.
Is it something that will stop, it will stay in its current condition, or will continue to deteriorate?
There's no way to know
Yeah.
that, that's impossible.
Yeah.
I think to camera, it's just a,
Yeah, I mean,
Good
it's
thing
cheap
to do.
insurance.
it's cheap, you
Yeah.
know, I just,
It's deal.
I mean, if you're doing the high school, the guy can, I've had it done at quite a few projects, and, you know, even if he's there a day, I think it's like $500, $600. You get a whole video of it.
It's cheap, but I guess what I'm thinking, we take a snapshot of it now, what does that tell us, though? I mean,
Well,
What kind of sag we have.
yeah, what kind of sag, but also it also tells whether you got other issues in piping that you're not aware of, even though there could be no problems right now, but you could find something out that could be a problem that you could take care of or avoid. So, any of the above slab sanitary vent piping or anything, we're gonna reuse, not touch where it's not being renovated. But I think I'll note that some of this is for me, that when I do my field inspections and get more detailed, I can look at if there's some issues that I can note out that would be part of the contract to correct. The kitchen area, I'm anticipating that where it's being moved around, there's gonna be kind of a gut of other stuff. The grease trap is gonna be outdoors, so we typically spec, and I code-wise as well, at times, is cast iron piping throughout the kitchen out to the grease trap, for either hot water, plastic. Doesn't handle all that well at higher temperatures.
Did you end up with a small grease trap inside and then the one outside?
No.
Or just one outside?
Just
all
one
the way
outside,
through?
yeah. I don't, grease trap's okay for like in this type of kitchen, it becomes a mess.
Sometimes I see two.
Yeah. It's assumed that all the rainwater piping systems will remain. If there's any alterations that move a leader or something, it'd be fairly simple to accommodate. The new roof will have the similar roof drains and rainwater as existing. I don't know if they have overflows or not, but if they're not gonna have scuppers, probably need overflow drains, which is, if the main drain becomes clogged, the overflow picks up in daylight. So by seeing the water daylight, you know you have a clogged drain in the roof. Again, the construction phasing should be fairly straightforward with this, with the system for tying into the existing new additions as well as any modifications.
Always simplifies things when the mechanical room stays where it is.
Yeah.
As opposed to the other property.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And I think civil has some roof drains coming off the additions too, so with those, you won't be tying into the existing, you're tying into the new, isn't that
no,
what I saw?
that's what I've anticipated.
That's what I saw.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, and that's even the case, you could even do that with sanitary too. I mean, if the sanitary ran there, so trying to tie into the existing system, just take that bathroom roof out.
You might find that at that end, sanitary's down with that
Yeah.
one, you grab, and
Yeah.
maybe the other one you have to connect.
Yeah.
We'll have to look at that with civil,
Yeah.
try to figure out, but it might, because I have no idea how high it is, deep end, so you can connect,
Exactly right. You may not hit that invert, so you're gonna have to, right, exactly.
You bring up an
issue, as a general question, I don't know if it is a general question, but with the additions that we're putting on, do we know that it's automatically gonna change the size of the pipes that we're gonna?
That's what they're going to be checking. We're only in schematic design at this point, so we're at a big
Yeah.
picture, but we'll be
Right.
verifying it.
The scoping will also identify the size of the pipe, and so I can take that and see if it can handle an additional roof in that main. If not, then we'd have to go out separately.
Is there any expectation, or you don't know till you get there?
I thought that they were,
Well, we'll know
Yeah.
before we get there.
I thought those were
We may
eight.
not know in the next 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
we will know, before we arrived, we had some of this conversation about sprinkler mains and different things. We're gonna be chasing some of those drawings so we can help find those issues, or find out what we're gonna have to deal with. The same will go with the sewer, the same will go with the roof drains. We're going through that process now and coordinating with civil to make sure, that we're all on the same page.
yeah. I did note in the assessment that we did that, the stormwater piping was shown on drawings that I found to be 8-inch in the building at the east end. Then I noted that marked up drawings showed it indicated a 12-inch as an as-built. So it's a fairly large size rain leader for that
Either way, it's.
building, yeah, so it may handle additional.
Yeah, I'm just more thinking out loud.
Yep.
When we went into this, I'm assuming we said the additions are gonna require new piping, et cetera, but did we think in the general bidding, et cetera, that most of the piping?
On this building, different than the high school. This one, we're expecting that the stuff in the existing building is gonna be able to stay and it would work. That's what we expected, and I think that's what we're gonna find too as we go through. If we find out something different because of a camera line or some minor, it would be minor items within, more so than a wholesale, nothing's any good.
And then the high school, it's.
Whole different
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
When we get there.
Yeah, it's more of just wanting to know, do we take that into consideration as we?
We did in the high school.
Whereas this
We
is-
did in the high school.
And I know Brad, civil engineer Brad, sat with our town water and public works director way back in the fall. I sat in on at least one of those meetings where they reviewed the pipe size, so he probably has some of that information on sanitary and stormwater at least, and I know the water mains came up in discussion as well, so.
As far as plumbing fixtures, the new ones will be planning on wall-hung toilets, urinals, lavatories, based on the layout, porcelain-type fixtures, ones that the flow rates meet or exceed the plumbing code, typically 1.6 gallon flush toilets, 1/8 toilet urinals.
Did we have the little people toilets?
Well, I got that noted, I think, in here. One on kindergarten bathroom, yeah. I got to that. One under sink hose bib in gang bathrooms that has a floor drains for washing down. I think I got that stuff from the meeting notes request. Floor drains typically provided in any bathroom that has 2 or more toilets or a urinal in the toilet. If the school wants one in every toilet, I can do that, if that's what you want.
And is American Standard and Kohler acceptable?
I'm fine with American Standard Code.
I'm sorry, what did
You said good.
Okay. Okay, so kindergarten will have, what I gathered from the notes, one kindergarten-sized mini toilet. There'll be 4 mounted, and then one standard height next to each other, right? That's how it looked like it was laid out. In here, there was 2 toilets and at least the plan I was looking at, is that
Typically,
right?
kindergarten only has one. The preschool was looking to have 2
Okay,
in their rooms, small ones.
okay. That's fine. Existing bathroom, plumbing fixtures, everything's to remain currently as installed. Watts, typically spec for floor drains and cleanouts, things like that.
Watts, Stern,
Yeah.
whatever.
So the heating plant, I guess is gonna remain number 2 oil. And given that, I was looking at a dual fuel burner, so they'd be set up for LP gas. I'm looking at specing 2 Wiesmann Leader-on cast iron boilers with the added building footprint, probably around 1,400 MBH output each. Right now they have for this footprint a little over 2,000 MBH. That will give some extra capacity. If one boiler goes down, they should be able to limp the school, keep it heated. They'll have their own package controls that we can interface with the BMS system. The plant will provide hot water to the existing and new system at 180 degree. Given this type of system, we'll have a reset, what they call reset water through a mixing valve. So on shoulder seasons, you can supply lower temperature so you save energy and avoid overheating spaces. I think they have that control there now at the existing. I don't know how well it works. Combustion air, I'm proposing, instead of the big louvers that they have in this type of system where the boilers are back, we've had a lot of luck with combustion air fans. They only supply the amount of outside air needed that the boiler is consuming. Where the louvers open, a lot of times they'll dump cold air, and if you have a pipe nearby, it could freeze. So it's a safety for freezing, but it's also provides only the amount of air that the boiler needs.
Will it work with the size openings that we have now?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to
Because
reduce.
now it's so typically
Yeah.
reduce the opening
Small.
size.
I'd like to reduce it, yeah, probably.
I think as your opening will stay, it will build on reduction.
Right.
Yep.
Right, because right now I noticed in here, when I did the assessment, that was, they were always open, you know, which happens most of the time. The dampers stop working, it just stays wide open all the time.
It's fine when the doors are running, that's it.
Yeah, or in the summertime. So heating pumps, I'm gonna base VFD, which is variable flow drive system on the pump. So as these valves open and close, the flow in the system increases and decreases, so the pumps will match that need and save energy. Basically, TACO is what we base the pumps on. If you want B&G, but TACO we have.
I'm happy with taking
Yeah.
it.
And then other boiler appurtenances such as expansion tank, the air separator, will all be based on TACO, in this case, for basis of design. I don't know, did that boiler room get passed around to everybody or on that side?
Sorry.
So on that sketch, you'll see that got the proposed locations for the 2 indirect water heaters, expansion tanks. The water heaters will have a master control mixing valve station that's mounted on the wall. It's got a built-in recirc pump with it, so the whole return loop comes back through that. You can do high-low kitchen water and domestic water. It's got the proposed locations for the pumps and the boilers, and these boilers will vent through the roof with 2 pipes, not a chimney system, independent each one. So you'll see the metal stack. So on to the ventilation systems. Some of these ventilations are ventilation heating as well, but I just tried to keep the ventilation portion first and then the heating, and tried to break it up a little bit like that. But the classrooms and the administration areas are served by 2 main heating ventilating units located in the mezzanine over the music room area. And this system's had its duct coils removed that served each room. I'm not sure why. They probably didn't work. However, the system, they had problems with overheating or something. But the space, the space should be able to pick up any tempering needed. The unit's going to have, H&V unit supplying the ventilation air will have a new coil to be rebuilt, new fan, new dampers, controls, and motor, and at that time that can be set up to supply tempered air.
Do we turn on a frequency drive on the motor?
We can, yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. The, yeah, because I don't know if there's other, I don't think that there's isolation dampers for rooms. I mean, that would work really well if you had the different classrooms had isolation dampers in the ductwork, and if they did, then you could really trim back on that, but.
So,
But-
just for the rest of us, what does this mean for the user, like people in the building?
Well, the people in the building are going to have the thermostat, which is going to be set through the controls, which will heat the space, and then they're just going to, ventilation air is going to be delivered in at neutral, like 72, 74
It's no
degrees.
different than what they did.
Yeah.
We're only taking the elementary school, rebuilding an existing unit,
Right.
ductwork, all that staying. We're
Right.
Right. And putting
renovating the
water
space, we might
controls.
take
Yeah.
and moving a diffuser or putting two
Right.
diffusers,
Right.
But-
all that.
But we're adding increased efficiency and improved controls, so we'll have slightly better regulation, and we're not gonna have dampers that are open full stop all year round, so it should improve the experience of the end user.
Right.
I do have a question on that. Did you survey those I haven't surveyed those controls in that building.
I didn't do,
Siemens called me up and said they put the system in. They say it's an Apogee system in place.
yeah, and I think I mentioned that in here, and in the assessment, but
A what system in place? I didn't understand.
Apogee. That's Siemens
Yeah.
control package.
Oh, okay.
so my understanding is that,
I assume that's a good thing?
What's that? Oh, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good thing, yes.
Yeah. my understanding is the system's about 3 years old, and I think when they installed that is when they took the duct coils and that scenario out and put in the new controls, so there's a whole graphics front end.
Yeah, because I noticed you
Yeah.
had Johnson Controls still listed as the elementary school, and I believe it is.
Yeah, that was me. That was my mistake.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
That should have been Siemens.
So-
Yeah.
He asked about,
Yeah.
Tony asked about the high school, and
Yeah.
I said that had the Johnson.
Which things to
Pedicus.
think about that it would make sense if we're gonna leave that control system the way it is in the elementary school, we would wanna really kinda keep the same system
Right.
in the high school, so we have one system.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I had proposed manufacturers here, which I think were, when I had discussed them with you, it was Honeywell, Siemens, or Control Technologies, but we can base it all around Siemens.
Well, I think if we already have the backbone in place for that building, it doesn't make sense.
No, it's great to try to get. I don't know,
Yeah.
it depends on the bids, and then somebody always, you know.
Well, and we can't just have them bid on it, we need multiple
Yeah,
bids.
so that's what I'm saying, there's a chance that Honeywell may come in low, and it's not always a
Offsets the cost.
seamless, right?
I mean, what we've done in the past and what could be an option is to offer that as an alternate in the bidding to go with.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, any changes to the control system at the elementary school is gonna end up being an Apogee system.
Right.
Because you don't wanna
Right.
change, we don't wanna change the whole backbone. We
Sure.
end up spending a lot more money. The Johnson control system that's in place at the high school is
Minimal.
sketchy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Plus, I think most,
In terms of age,
most of that's 20 years old.
Yeah, it's
And-
way past its prime.
Yeah, it's,
And right now, the staff, my staff there, that does not have actually access to it.
yeah.
Right.
See, and that was kind of a weak link when I did the assessment, because the gentleman that was facilities had just left, so everybody that knew anything about it, I was blind going through it, so. Somebody tried to pull it up on screen, and it showed rooms and VAVs like for the media room, but no set points were listed, it's all that, I think it's there, but it's, you know, it wasn't tied in to show what the temperatures are and set points and things, it just was never completed.
You don't keep that vendor believing that there's an option, you'll be in trouble.
Historically.
Oh, I mean, you got,
Nobody's arguing that, I think.
Historically, what we've done is we'll have you guys list 3 or 4 guys, whatever, and we'll specifically ask each of the mechanical contractors when they submit a bid, what package they can use.
right, and I guess what I'm saying is like, on the elementary school, for instance, you're gonna have to go with one system that's already in place, so there's not a lot of choices
Yep.
there.
Right, because you're gonna add.
High school's another whole completely different story.
Would it be preferable, bids aside, to go with this similar system at the high school?
I'm always a big fan of having the one, if you have it one here and have it the other, because if you ever have a situation where one person has to cover for the other person or
The
something like
training
that,
perspective is easier.
it's so much easier. I will say most of these controls are fairly user-friendly nowadays, and most of them can actually communicate with each other, which didn't happen several years ago.
Yeah, years back, that wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, back then it was.
Yeah.
Where this is, if I understand right, being bid as one package for both schools, is that how, or is that
Depends.
not?
I think they're gonna possibly bid it out as two, that, and a
Okay, because I
different
was saying
price
if
for
you had it
both,
as
yeah.
one, maybe you can get it
Some
the
of
same
these stores might
manufacturer.
just be too big.
Yeah.
Right.
We make people bid both of them, it's gonna limit who we can do.
Yep.
There's two separate projects, there's no reason we can't have two different mechanical guys, two different electricians with this size project.
John, so what might be the pros and cons of separating versus combining the bids?
Just what I was just saying is, you'd really limit who's capable. See, if you try to have one, and it may work out,
Yeah.
you could have a big electrician, could end up being low on both and get it.
Yep.
But you also limit who can do it, because not everybody can handle both these projects going at the same time.
Gotcha.
So by separating it, or at least showing that we intend to, we'll have options, or we may have options.
Well, and all we do is we plant the seed in the minds of the bidders that potentially they could only get one of the projects, still with the potential that they could do both of them.
Right, if they're priced right.
So you still want to take advantage of the big guy if he, in fact, because of the economy of scale,
Yep.
can be more competitive.
Right.
So it doesn't close any doors. It
Gotcha.
allows you also, if you have local guys that are a little smaller, the opportunity to potentially do one that they wouldn't be capable of doing two projects.
And that could be as simple as a painter. Maybe there's painters out there that can handle the elementary school, who couldn't handle both at the same time. We don't want to exclude them by making it too big, so we break it up, and if it works, we'll hire two different painters. If it works to have one painter that can do both, then that's what we'll recommend to you.
And this is another benefit of the open book CM process, is that they do all that bidding, they bring the bids to you guys, and you guys can make the decision.
We're gonna provide recommendations when that time comes.
Media room, I was gonna just replace that existing H&V unit. It's an above ceiling, standalone unit. Instead of trying to replace parts of it, I think I can get that replaced and perhaps size it so it can get maybe some economizing cooling out of it, free cooling, if it's sized properly.
Just a question on that, Sean, now that we've moved this computer lab over here,
Yep.
does that new unit that you're talking about, a rebuilt unit, does that incorporate that, and do we want it to for AC?
No, because the music room's across, right?
Music room's across the hall. So the computer lab, you're gonna need the air condition.
I thought he was talking media.
No,
Oh.
you said music, didn't you?
Well, is it library or media?
Oh, media
Well,
room.
music has an existing.
No, what's that, is that the library? I'm
This
talking
is the
about?
library. he's-
Library,
Okay,
yeah.
I thought it was media.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's got an H&V unit.
So that's what you were talking about, right?
Yes, that's space.
So-
The other, this is air conditioned, right?
So,
And I was gonna leave that.
yep,
This is air conditioned, but this computer lab is new?
Mike, yes, we moved it there.
They're moving over.
So my
one
point
room.
is if, normally, if it's next to a library, you air condition that too, so should we add it into that unit is my question.
Well, that would be a different unit. I mean, we could we could use that H&V for ventilation and add ductless AC systems, or I could put a small rooftop unit over the,
I'm not trying to add scope, I'm just
Yeah.
raising a
Yeah.
question, because it's,
and then duct in. The computer labs, I kind of
is
like
it
to have.
air conditioned now?
No.
The computer lab's not air conditioned?
Computer lab is, the media, the
No,
library is not.
Library's not, no.
Oh.
So, I mean, to add air conditioning to that library, the cost of the project, you know, you might be looking at 8 or 10 grand or something like that for if it's a ductless split system.
And to do just the computer lab space and a rooftop
Well, the computer
unit?
rack, yeah, probably the same. Yeah. I mean, that should be done.
The computer lab is air conditioned now, and we want it air conditioned in the
Yeah.
final, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Jumped that to air conditioning.
sorry.
Just completely.
Computer lab will get specified with new ductless air conditioning. No AC for the media library.
If we expand or potentially expand air conditioning in the future, is that something that we think about now and put in something that makes it a little
Well,
easier?
if it's gonna be the library, we're gonna upgrade the ventilation system and heating, you'll have that. That's an easy, library can put a ductless system in anytime, under any configuration. The condensing unit could be up on a roof and just put a couple of heads in there, cassette heads in the ceiling, you're done.
Well, I assume you're using ductless selectively, or are you using that as a way to do every single room if you were doing a whole project?
We have done whole projects that way recently, just with the ductless, but in this case here, with renovation
And
and.
it's tiny.
Yeah, the small, the ductless just works. It's an easy 2-day installation and you're done.
Yeah, I've had it at home for like
Yeah,
10 years. I was
yeah,
virtually, but it's worked fine.
yeah.
And I'm assuming that's a change now, is that whatever this going forward is, it probably would be solved with ductless without having to rerun pipes through.
Right, right. I mean, the only provisions might be is that electrical would have a circuit, you know, paying a little extra dedicated so they can wire right to it if you wanted to have that.
Yeah, and we're benefiting, we actually got two of them.
Yep.
Can I just ask on the library why we would not go with air conditioning? Aren't libraries typically air conditioned, or is it just a matter of?
It's really not utilized during the summer, and you're not getting the extra heat generated by the computers. I mean, that's
Gotcha.
the reason for the computer space specifically. You know, it certainly could be, it just doesn't get to year-round use. I don't think it would be a bad idea to have the electrical available if we were to add that in the future. You know, I think in communities, the use of libraries is gonna continue to evolve, and we may use that at some point in the future,
Right.
more community-wide, but right now, it's not an existing
We can
use.
always easily
We
add
don't have that
Right.
many
Sounds
options
like-
manuscripts
Yep.
that we have.
We do not.
I won't say.
Yeah, okay, existing ductwork remain. Existing exhaust fans. I was, where we were upgrading and rebuilding the other existing systems, I thought that at this point it'd be fairly inexpensive to replace exhaust fans that are up there on the rooftops for bathrooms and things now. It's not a huge price, but if it's something you don't want to do, I could take it out, but, you know, you might, I don't know, what, 2,500 a fan or something.
Did we have it in the pre-bond write-up?
I think, let me see what I had in that.
You don't have to look now, Hank.
Yeah.
We
But
just
I-
need to be careful of scope creep
Right.
and every little thing.
Those are things that a year from now, when we get a good feel of where we're at, if there's still money, you're not bothering anything, you go up there and change it. If it's there, it's there.
Right.
But those are the types, that's kind of how we have to draw the line. If it can wait, it wasn't part of it, it should wait. If you have to take something apart, it's a different
Yeah.
discussion.
I did have it in there.
It was part.
Okay.
I had that the current space toilet exhaust fans should be replaced with high-efficiency fans. And then at this time, that any size adjustment could be made if it is exhausting more bathrooms than it did originally, so.
Good.
The new cafe, which is a renovated gym or multipurpose room, has 2 existing H&V units, just like the one serving the classrooms. Plan on rebuilding those, keeping those 2 separate units operational as they are. One of them may work or will work in conjunction with the kitchen makeup air and the kitchen exhaust system, supplying additional makeup air, usually a transfer from the calf through to the kitchen for additional makeup air, keeping the kitchen more negative. And the new classroom additions will have ERU, DOAS rooftop unit. Renew Air is the manufacturer we specify around. And
So I'm not sure, sometimes as engineers, we throw out these acronyms assuming everybody knows what we're talking about. When he says ERU, that's an energy recovery unit. A DOAS type system is what they call a dedicated outside air system. In other words, you size your equipment, the energy recovery equipment, just for the ventilation to satisfy the occupants, and then you actually use units within the space to do the zone conditioning. So the ERUs, the energy recovery units, would provide the ventilation air in accordance with ASHRAE standards, and then we'd rely on the fin tube radiation in each space to do the heating.
so we would supply, in this scenario, the kindergarten areas, you supply to the classrooms and exhaust and bathroom areas. Ventilation air isn't large quantities, it may be 100 CFM, but it's code compliant. The gym, I'm looking at a rooftop air handler, just heating only, hot water. The air handler would have its own dedicated, where it's not glycol in the system, a dedicated coil freeze protection pump, which is a circulator that circulates water continuously in the coil, so if it gets cold out and the coil gets cold, it won't freeze up. Other than that, you should have to have glycol, which you want to avoid at any times. However, for the kitchen, the makeup air unit, where we don't have, unless we had gas on hand, but if we don't, the makeup air unit will have a hot water coil. So that one I propose up in the mezzanine to put a dedicated glycol circuit just with a heat exchanger just for that one unit.
I'm not a fan of glycol.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it creates problems down the road.
Yeah, I know. I don't, as far as I guess I can look at freeze protection pump for that. That is 100% outside air. I mean, that's going to get.
Yeah. I think the hard part, without gas,
if we had gas and you had
if
gas appliances.
put a gas-fired rooftop package over the gym.
That would be very nice.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's
then
what
you
I'm-
don't have any potential for freezing, which then takes out
in the
gyms.
kitchen though already. We've got
Yeah, but then
Have a
the
little-
capacity has to be sized accordingly. And
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
talking. He'll be talking something where we need 1,000 gallon.
At least a
tank.
1,000-gallon tank. Yeah.
Vaporization space.
Right.
Yeah, 1,000 gallons above ground's good for, I think, like 500 BTUs, 500,000 BTUs.
Yeah, I was thinking it was more like 7, but
I think that's,
maybe right up there.
yeah,
It doesn't matter.
all right.
I'm gonna look it up, damn it.
yeah. One's 500.
Simmer down now.
500,000, the other's 750,000. So I think the 750 was buried, but I may be mistaken. So, are you objecting the glycol loop, or this time, or do you want to just see it?
Let's see what it looks like on paper, and we can go from there, I guess.
Okay.
I'm just not a fan, because I know what's gonna happen
Oh,
in
yeah.
the long run.
I understand.
What's the choice there? Is it expense or in maintenance?
Low temp alarm or something.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
freeze the coil right out.
Yeah,
It's
and-
100% outside air.
No, but the choice between the solutions, is one more expensive than the other?
Well,
Advantages?
I mean,
When you start freezing coils, it gets
Short term or
yeah.
long term, yes.
yeah.
They never freeze when you want them to. They freeze during Christmas break, during the time when people aren't there, and it's not being used like it normally would. That's when they freeze.
And the problem with glycol is it has a tendency to be a little corrosive to seals, and it starts leaking and creating the connections. So in 3 to 5 years, you're going to start repairing leaks in the system. That's the drawback of it.
It's
Gas fire would be ideal. I just don't think we have the ability to drop a tank out there.
What size tank is there now, just 100 pounder or something?
I'm not sure.
Is
It's
it real
probably,
estate
probably
for the
just a
tank?
100-pound pig in there.
Or What is it?
Might be 200 gallons.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to put something else.
Same size as the wood. Yeah.
No, but is that oil tank's got years on it though, right? Is that what I understand it or not?
Well, it's not new. And the shame of it is one at the high school that
Yeah, that's the-
throw away
yeah.
is the newer of the two.
Yeah, okay.
This is recently inspected, and everybody's happy with it,
All right,
so.
that's
let it
fine,
be.
yeah.
For the sake of what we're dealing with now, I think we stay with glycol, but it doesn't mean we don't continue to talk about it. But this process, we stay in it.
Oh, that's what I would suggest at this point. I mean, you know, like I said, I'm not a fan because I know maintenance-wise.
Well, yeah, and there's other alternatives that we've done with this, and another consideration to think, I don't know, you're probably familiar with it, but that portion of that side of the heat exchanger could be piped with Aquatherm piping. Then you only have to worry about the coil and the heat exchanger side. Heat exchanger can get pretty tolerable to glycol. So, I mean, Aquatherm, we've done that on a lot of buildings with glycol, and it's nothing bothers it, so
What's the upcharge for that ish?
not much.
So wow,
About the same.
why don't we do that?
Yeah,
I could spec it for that right now.
What's it called? Aquatherm?
Aquatherm, yeah, polypro piping. There's another one, Nupi,
beginning.
Nupro piping. The idea, the piping itself is more expensive, but it can be installed in less than half the time.
So just on that kitchen area?
Glycol portion,
Okay.
which will be located at the mezzanine to the rooftop, so it's very minimal piping.
Okay.
Okay, so we got the gym addition, okay, we got the H&V type of unit on that. But do you ever think that there'd be any future potential for cooling of that gym? I mean, the air handler could be sized for future cooling coils, or is that, it's not that much cost, or just forget about it?
If
Or
I can,
electrically you can't
if
do
I
it.
can interject, just that right now, we're based on maintaining, we're installing new equipment for the electric, but we're based on keeping the existing electric service size, and a big part of that, the reason we're able to do that is because so much of the building isn't cooled.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's,
All right.
we're doing a new service entrance anyway, so if it makes sense for the district to add cooling, you know, we're not talking about a lot of money, but I just want to kind of put up a little caution flag there that, you know, electrical needs to be a consideration if we're thinking
Yeah.
about adding
We're
cooling
used to
in areas.
sweating it out in New England.
Yeah, I
in
just
summer,
threw
right?
that out there,
You're gonna
because
be in the
it's nothing
gym.
for, yeah,
Part of the territory.
yeah, that's fine.
That's why you go to the gym.
That's right, that's right.
Making it easy.
The gym air handler will also provide.
While we're on that, can that be satisfied by old methods of different ventilation?
You open the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
Fans?
Well, the unit will
Fans.
Plug
economize.
in a fan.
Yeah.
I'll set this unit up to economize, so on a day like today, it'd be 100%
Just
outside
yeah,
air.
Yeah.
Yep. So that air handler will also serve the lobby, toilet area for ventilation and heating typically. The PE storage area, that would have its own unit heater located within that. I'd typically have a return, just pulling some air through that. So I think back to the heating side now, that the heating piping was in decent shape, and the goal is to keep the components of the piping systems intact and work with those as part of the renovation, keeping as minimal impact as possible on them. Any piping for the new addition areas, I'm going to set out a new pair of pipes. And in that case, the feed the classroom would come out by the music room and run down that corridor and pick up the classroom area, anything with the kitchen and that storage in the gym will be quite easy because it's adjacent to the mechanical room, so that heat pipes can easily serve that area as separate zones from the existing heating system. And the classroom addition would have fin tube. I know I talked early on, Brad was talking about possibly radiant panels. We can still look into that, where it's 180 degrees. Ceiling radiant panels work well with that temperature, 180 degree water. But right now I'm figuring fin tube for heat.
Radiant panels are more money to put in. Considerably more, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's the radiant ceiling panels. You need at 180 degree water. They heat close to fin tube, but the fin tube installed right now they're just going $100 or $110 a foot on that, and the panels. So I guess what I'm getting at is, from my understanding, talking to the vendor, it's kind of a wash at this point. There is a little more piping involved with the ceiling panels because you have to interlock them. But I think it wasn't the idea that Brad had. I think for that was in the kindergarten area, just try to get some radiant heat down. It was just one thing we talked about. But right now I'm carrying fin tube. There's options there if you want.
What's the practical difference, Hank? I mean, fin tube versus the other?
Well, the fin tube you get some radiation, but fin tube mainly works on a convective cycle where these panels, whether they're in a wall or in a ceiling, they radiate more on the surfaces, just like the radiant slab heat does, the same principle. And I've done them in school retrofits, and they've worked quite well, even especially picking up the chill along exterior walls and windows and stuff. But
The kindergarten rooms, there's a lot of casework. That's why we like to do radiant,
Yeah.
because it keeps it clean. Fin tube is a big chunk off the wall, so your casework has to kind of.
I mean, to go radiant slab, you'd need,
We're not going there.
yeah, yeah, okay.
From an energy consumption
No.
standpoint, is there much difference from an energy consumption standpoint?
Wouldn't think so. I think it'd probably be about the same.
Still talking to BTU.
It's comfort.
Yeah.
It's more of a comfort thing. That would be.
Don't forget, these kids are low to the ground too.
Well, the radiant ceiling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's deceiving that you'd think it'd be hot, but it's not. It's still just a lower area warm.
So right now we have the old fashioned.
Right.
Or
Right on
crawl.
their feet.
But right now, the basis of
Okay.
design will be fin tube. And air and water balance portion of it, I'd definitely do the new systems, obviously, but I would look at going back to existing diffusers for each room to make sure you're getting the code compliant ventilation air. So it's basically a rebalance of the existing systems, and from whatever I can get from blueprints and occupants and loads and things, I should be able to figure out what the CFM should be. And I think we talk about temperature controls already. Again, my understanding is there's full graphics to the spaces. I think the boiler room wasn't upgraded. I think it was mainly the classrooms and the front end computer and the fin tube and the control valves and stuff there. But at that time, I didn't have the facilities guide to get into depth on.
What was there before the Siemens Apogee went
Been here 3
Anything?
weeks.
in? Oh, okay.
A big knob.
That
Yeah,
came in,
okay. Yeah.
they were installing that
Right
when
ahead
I
of
came in,
time.
yeah.
I'm trying to
I think it was a
Pretty
pneumatic.
basic.
I think
Siemens
Okay.
told me they converted from a pneumatic system.
I was just gonna say, I remember a compressor in the boiler room, so there were pneumatics originally, which for late '80s, I guess, they're kinda hanging on a little bit there,
Yeah.
but they're going electronic by then, pretty much. So,
I just have one question. From everything that you've just said, and that's in the schematic write-up, it kind of is based off your original pre-bond kind of survey. The one question I had, or clarification, is the plumbing fixtures. All of the existing plumbing fixtures throughout the building are vintage. These fixtures do not meet low flow water usage, so are we updating all the?
well, no, this right up here, existing was to remain.
I know, so I just want to make sure expectations are met, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall the ad issue off the top of my head, but, I mean, was it part of, can we answer now, can we look back and see whether it was
We
part
had
of
some
the
plumbing
spec?
fixtures, I mean, we had faucets that don't
Well,
meet code.
it
right?
was in here,
Yeah.
so I would assume, I don't know Ekman, but you should verify, if it was in here saying that they should be replaced and they don't meet code, then that,
Then we went the extra step, we said areas we weren't renovating, we weren't.
Yeah,
touching.
that was the last I heard. but
Okay.
that-
That was the way it was left.
I don't know if that's how.
that's why I'm bringing this up.
Sure,
Yeah.
no
That's
problem.
a good point.
We were trying, as we delineated a lot of this, we picked this, we're not touching, it's kind of, but now, one of these bathrooms gets renovated as part of the renovation, different story.
Right.
They
Right.
get new fixtures, but you get a bathroom at the other end of the building, it's
For
staying.
most of our bathrooms are.
Right.
Vintage sounds reusable.
It is.
They do.
Coming back
Yeah.
in style.
Yeah, they're not.
According to code, they're not. We have dual control faucets, then they have to be
ADA, yeah.
not.
Right.
So if it doesn't, if it's not part of this project, it's certainly
We're
something to
gonna
remember for the capital.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not a costly thing. I mean, it's not like when you're figuring new with the rough-ins and everything, you're saying it's $1,500 a fixture. I mean, to do that, you might be talking $300 a faucet, $300 a toilet, and sun.
So do we want to have an alternate to price that out? Do you want to
Yeah,
have Greg
no,
look at the
trying to-
existing fixtures to see if there's anything?
Yeah, I think we need to do that and then
Okay.
consider whether it goes in CIP or we have a list if, you know, we have funds left at the end of the
I
day.
guess as we come up with issues like this, are we keeping a list in some priority? If we have room as we get to the next phase, this would be the first out of these 20 different issues we talked about. Upgrading. At least we should have a list of that.
Well, that's why I like keeping it as an alternate, because that reminds us to have it priced, and it reminds you on what your not wish list, but things that you'd like to do if you can.
So, just so I understand, is it that the fixtures are dilapidated and don't necessarily meet current flow requirements and other code requirements?
They're old.
Or is it that the bathrooms
old.
don't meet ADA?
It's not ADA necessarily. It's,
Well, I guess the only
Yeah.
point I'm making is if we have an alternate to replace the fixtures, can we just go in and replace water closets, or now do we need to set up an ADA stall?
yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes the
Yeah.
rip ends up being
Right.
a problem.
Part of the reason why we were staying away from them.
Let's,
Even
well, at
if
this
you
point,
touch
let's
something,
carry
you
it
have
as an
to-
alternate and see what the price
In some
is.
cases, yeah. There's a whole threshold.
I mean, it's not a big deal, right?
We're gonna go through this first step to find out where we're at.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
We're gonna have time to then make.
But as Russ said, I mean, as we go through this, we'll lose these pieces unless we carry them as a specific thing.
so alternate that you're talking about is to replace all existing lavatories, toilets.
Yeah. Unless, Greg, you find that they're fine?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get that. It'll be next week before I look at them, but
Yeah.
I'll get in there and
Questions,
answer
yeah,
the-
good, probably good question to ask at this
Give
time,
me another.
too.
Well, the only other question I have on
I
some of
know.
these things, if you choose to upgrade something, does then that require you to upgrade other things to be able to handle that?
Yeah, but
Or is it a standalone, you know, a open fixture, or piping plumbing or anything like that, just a fixture? Is, well, hold on, we're gonna put this one in and we gotta redo all the piping. I'd sort of like to know that too.
The good news is
I'm
modern.
not big on surprises.
Yeah, modern fixtures will require less water flow, so the piping size should be adequate. But if now you need to move a water closet because its current location doesn't meet ADA, you may have have to change the rough in, which can change the chase layout of the
Yeah,
site.
Which is what-
I'm not expecting to resolve any of
Right,
that.
yeah,
As we go
yeah.
through this.
No, it's a great
but
point.
Here's the thought, okay, or here's an alternative. I'd at least like to say, once we have that list, we get later, that we also say, but this one's got a three-step to it, you know, if you're gonna go in that direction, it'll rattle down and make you think about 3 or 4 other things.
But if we find the underslab pipe is too small, and if we can change out the existing fixtures with lower flow rates than the existing underslab pipe's okay, then that may be a lot cheaper, you know?
I'll know more once I get into doing the field work as well.
So it all sounds good at the moment that we're speaking about it, but
Yeah.
certain things at night that we've talked about, and unfortunately, capacity up here is reducing.
All right, electrical?
Okay, I can hand a little handout for the elementary.
Okay. Do you have a lot or not?
There's
Okay.
plenty for everybody. And basically what this handout is really just more a sort of list of talking points, just some bullet items to summarize, in a little bit of a nutshell, the recommendations that we had in our original assessment, as well as the way reflecting the way the project has evolved. One thing I would like to point out, I need to apologize, there is an error when we get down to the fire alarm section. It calls for a complete new fire alarm system for the elementary, and that is not correct. We're expanding the existing Mircom system to serve the project areas.
Are we gonna see that same language maybe at the junior senior high?
I'm sorry?
We might see that language at the junior senior high project, potentially. Sneak preview. Okay.
You might. So as we discussed when we were talking about site, the existing electrical service does conflict with the addition, so we are planning on bringing in a new service. I anticipated as the design progresses and we get the utility company on board, they're going to have some input about this, but my recommendation would be to put a pad mount transformer near the electric room. Basically for cost, the existing pole that has the transformers on it today would become a riser pole for an underground primary that would go to that transformer, and basically the primary uses smaller wire and thus is less costly than running a longer, lower voltage. So from a power distribution standpoint, do we have a floor plan that I can just... Right behind me. So in a nutshell, the elementary school's electrical service is here in the boiler room. We have equipment, panel boards in 2 rooms that are here and here. We have some panels in the kitchen, and we've got a panel that's in the kindergarten wing. Our design approach is basically that the main switchboard has reached the end of its life, doesn't really have a lot of expansion capability for adding panel boards. And considering we need to replace the underground anyway, we're going to have a new switchboard. The existing equipment that's in these locations and largely feeds classrooms that are not being touched is simply going to stay. Any of the renovated areas will be fed out of new equipment. Because of some of the renovations, we'll actually be freeing up a little bit of capacity from the existing panel boards. So it's sort of an approach that what's new is going to be fed from new. What we're not touching, we're leaving alone from a power distribution standpoint. Lighting, we're taking a similar approach. The classrooms that we're not really doing anything, the existing lighting and lighting controls are going to remain. In addition and renovated areas, where the design is all high-performance LED lighting. We are planning automatic shut-off, which is required by the energy code via either occupancy sensors or time. Most spaces will be occupancy sensors. And also daylighting controls, which automatically dim the light in areas where daylight can fully or partially replace the electric light.
And I think we should have that as an alternate, the daylighting, because it's not necessarily code, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
let's just
It could be, yeah,
get
that
the
could be an
value of
alternate.
that.
Because that does add, there is a premium for that, because it changes the control unit that we use for each room. So the controls could be simpler. I'm going to kind of try to move along quickly, just because I know that heat and air conditioning is much more interesting to people than wiring.
No, I like wiring too.
Site lighting is being replaced with new LED with full cutoff optics. And basically what full cutoff optics means is that no light goes above the horizontal, so that try to keep the sky as dark as possible at night.
What do we do as far as site lighting of the perimeter wall? We refer to as the perimeter. No, we were putting lighting in the big parking lot, but what about the perimeter?
So we're gonna light as much as we can from building mounted fixtures.
Yep.
So most of them will be building mounted here as well as here. We'll probably have one fixture back here, a pole mounted fixture.
And how about the bigger loop and then the tail going out the other side? How do we deal
We'll have new sidelights there.
with sight lights there and we come around the other end with this parking,
Well,
sight lights there too?
Maybe one, but these will be building mounted here.
If you get some idea of the quantity you're thinking,
Okay.
let us know so that, because those poles can be pricey, just so we.
Sure.
relay that information.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, part of the concern we really need to light the road, just from the standpoint of to be coming from a public way that's illuminated to a darker place at this, for parents' night or whatever.
We're in agreement, it's
Yep.
tough to guess. Yeah, that's all.
Understood. And
Now the new
and as
ones are not cheap.
And as Ingrid mentioned, any areas that we can light from the building, we will light from the building because it's simpler and more economical. Emergency lighting, I'm sorry?
So I don't think we have any now, so it'll all be a bonus.
Well, there are some poles, but they're kind of pedestrian scale. It wouldn't surprise me at all if a few of them aren't working, because they have been. The poles are probably about 30 years old at this point.
Oh, it's brand new. 30 years old.
Just broke it in. Emergency lighting will be provided in accordance with code requirements using battery units that are integral to the general lighting fixtures. So it keeps the walls and ceilings a little bit cleaner. Also saves on some wiring.
Just a question on
Yeah.
lights, and most of them are T8s, which are how old?
Probably, well, the TA, I'm not sure when that building would have got upgraded, because I think that building was built in
T8 32s that are in
'86.
there.
I'm sorry?
The T8 32s that are in there.
Should we have an alternate to have?
I've already wrote down my note about that.
Okay. Because I know it's not in yours, but it may be a capital improvement to,
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's grants and other ways to
Yeah.
possibly do that.
and it may be
so.
a 3-year payback, or,
Can you translate what's a TA?
I'm sorry.
Oh, fluorescent,
Starting with a
because
T12.
I guess I'll start with the state of the art and work backwards. State of the art lighting today is LED. which is light emitting diode. They have very good life expectancy, generally somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 hours of life, depending on the manufacturer. And in terms of efficiency, in lighting we deal with lumens as the unit of light. So LED fixtures today offer up to, they're commonly about 100 lumens per watt, up to, on the more efficient side, about 130 lumens per watt. Stepping back, what I'll call the last generation of fluorescent was T5, which also offered in the range of 100 to 115 lumens per watt as far as energy efficiency. However, a couple of things you can do with LED that you can't do with fluorescent. LED dims very well. It maintains a constant color as you dim it. It stays quiet as you dim it, whereas fluorescent can tend to hum. And also, LED maintains about 90% of its output over the course of the life of the fixture. Whereas with fluorescent, we would, by halfway through their anticipated life, they would lose about 30% of their output. So we ended up over-designing on day one to try to design for the bulk.
Well, and just replacing the bulbs, I mean, you're gonna have however much in
Well, you
labor.
deal with universal waste at that point,
Yeah.
Right.
so, and,
Yeah.
And the lighting is-
The waste management. So,
And the lighting is poor. I mean, that's your existing gym compared.
to kind of equate a little bit more, if you wanted to kind of get a physical idea what they look like, a T5 is about the size of your finger. Give it
Yes.
to you, a T8's probably the size of a large quarter.
well, they're measured, well, it's an inch in diameter, because the number after the T is eighths of an inch.
Right. And then
So,
you have T12s,
in the old days, you had T12s, which were, in 12/8 or an inch and a half in diameter, then they went down to an inch. T8 came into being in common use in the early to mid-90s. So my guess is that the lighting at the elementary has been retrofit at some point to T8.
Well, they're 32, so there was probably, 5 or 7 years ago, there was a big push on T8 25s.
So we'll get an alternate.
Yeah, I think it's a sensible alternate.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No worries.
Exterior lighting, what would the color number be outside?
The two most common are 4,000 degrees Kelvin and 5,000 degrees Kelvin. We would recommend the 4,000 because it's a little bit warmer. 5,000 is very blue. As you get warmer, you lose a little bit of energy efficiency, but not appreciable. I mean, if we were to hear that your preference was, we want to be, maximize energy efficiency as much as we possibly can, I would suggest going to the 5,000 degrees Kelvin color temp. But if it were my choice, I would go with the 4,000.
Just off the light.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit closer to white. The 5,000 can look kind of blue. Can be a little, and I suppose a little softer. Yeah,
Overall,
yeah. It's kind of tough when you talk about lighting because it's very subjective. Different people prefer different colors, but yeah, I would think the 5,000 a little more harsh than 4,000.
Thanks.
Sure. We will also be adding outdoor emergency lighting, which currently exists on the kindergarten addition, but that's the only portion of the building that has it today. Got some items here, kitchen equipment. I'm understanding that most of the kitchen equipment is being replaced.
There are a few plates that we're gonna keep, but other than
Well, there actually, there's a fair amount of the elementary that we're just gonna, the classrooms we're generally gonna leave alone, is my understanding. telecommunications in the elementary, we are going to be, because we're digging to a pole and bringing a new electrical service in, I think it makes sense to add some conduits for telecommunications, because at that point, the conduit is very inexpensive once you've got the trench dug. Much of the data and telecommunications infrastructure is going to remain, because it's in areas that aren't really, I think your server today is in the small room off the library, and I think that right here, and that stays where it is. It gets supplemented with a data room here and a wiring closet in the addition over here.
As we talk about alternates, I assume we may be the gatekeeper on
Yep.
that. And Mike's discussion on, is it gonna be a capital project or should we consider those capital? I guess if there's another column and maybe we're not speaking to it, is that a decision I have to make in the next year to two to say, we're gonna be building this, now's the time to make this one. This set over here, you can change out or do later on long-term capital improvement without wrecking the building. So if that's just another parameter that we need to be able to put down against these alternates.
So the library air conditioning as an example, right? That isn't one that has to be done immediately because we don't have to do any extra work to have pieces in place.
Well, that's also because of the wall units too. You know, if you didn't have the ductless, you'd have to say, whoa, if you're gonna do the air conditioning here, you're
Correct.
gonna pull apart the whole library. So I don't know which are there, but if that's another parameter we should put against these, because we're doing a 2.5 year build. We're gonna have two capital plans, and there need to be capital allocations on oops, or let's decide, does the town want to decide, do we want?
Well, and are they capital or are they operating budget, which is a whole nother question. Yep.
It's just trying to coordinate those needs with the ultimate decision. Sounds like we used to call it a PERT CPM network, trying to put all these little pieces together, God only knows what they call it.
But again, those are the judgments that this committee will make at the end of the process. Once we sort of come back through the next estimating phase, we'll sort of look at, okay, where are we in the scope? What other outstanding information do we need? And then what alternates are now going to be able to fit into the scope of the project, or where might we need to reduce scope if it came to that?
You're gonna find those alternates would be a ways out.
I understand.
We'll have a lot we'll have to continue to work through. There'll be massaging that we'll do even within the base.
Correct.
But it's good to have the understanding of what those alternate or additional items may be. So we are making big picture decisions, and you're absolutely right. Some things we may say, you know what, even though that was in scope, that can wait. This is now more of a priority because we don't want to take something apart. We may make some of those adjustments as we go through this process. And we're fortunate enough that we're taking some time to do this, and we're not trying to get started a month from now and just be like, we got an answer, we got to go. So we're really trying to do this and continue to meet and go over this stuff with you guys to keep everybody up to date with what we're doing, so the correct decisions can be made.
Right, and one thing I can sort of speak to lighting a little bit. When the industry started really aggressively manufacturing and designing LEDs, retrofits were a big item in most manufacturers' mind, and specifically, certainly in school gymnasiums, for example, that used to have metal halide lighting that took 20 minutes to warm up if you shut it off, and et cetera. A real priority for them was, we want to make fixtures that can be a one-for-one swap. So the lighting, I think, is a very clean alternate, because if you choose not to do it, the capital project is simply take a light down, replace it with a light, the wiring stays, the control stays, and it really is just replace the lighting. If there were areas where, and if the ceiling was being replaced for some other reason, I would say, if the ceiling's opened up, go ahead and do, the lighting at that time. But if the ceiling's staying, I would simply leave it alone. But it's a great alternate.
Are you done, or no?
I think for the elementary, I am.
So, I just had one question. The
Okay.
fire alarm appliances are higher than permitted by ADA,
Yes.
so we need to lower them.
That's the pull boxes? Or?
No, the horn strobes.
Oh, okay.
Do we need to lower them?
I think if we're not doing anything in the room, if the room is simply an existing room to remain, the fire alarm panel is existing to remain. I don't think so. I think they stay.
So,
If we-
all new additions, the appliances will be at the right.
Correct.
All the existing ones that we aren't touching, we're just leaving.
Correct.
What's the ADA concern?
It's ADA.
So people can see it?
It's
Little people can see it in that case.
and it has some bearing. It's based on laboratory testing. It has some bearing as to how the light bounces off of the surfaces in the room. But the ADA standard is 80 inches above the finished floor to the bottom, and it's that specific. They do allow equivalent. There is language in the ADA that allows for equivalent facilitations. So in an area like a big dog store, you can ceiling mount them, or in a gym you can ceiling mount them.
So what I'm really getting at is there's a difference between what the code requires and then what you can get away with because you're not touching a space. What I want to know is this something we should do?
In terms of,
So, yeah, I would say that's a good question for us to pose to the fire chief and the code enforcement officer, essentially, because, that it's part of their work. But I think we've been working in that building for 30 years with them at the height that they're currently at, and are very used to doing fire drills and evacuations with the current standard, and there haven't been any issues.
correct, and it may have been.
And they've never pointed it out.
It may have been allowed based on an equivalent facility, they may have seen it as an equivalent facilitation when it got done. So I'm sorry, meaning how far off are they?
Yeah, I mean, is this a meaningful issue or?
I don't think it's a big deal. I don't recall exactly the height they're at, but
It's
again,
not a,
where we're not touching the rooms and we're not replacing the system. Some of it comes down to semantics. If we were replacing the fire alarm control panel, I would be concerned that because we are replacing the system, we're obligated to update the entire building. Because we're simply expanding the system, I'm of the opinion that what exists today and was approved when it was installed can remain as long as those areas aren't being renovated. And the areas that are being renovated are up to the current standard.
And again, I won't speak obviously for the fire chief or the code enforcement officer, but I think that's what the approach has been overall to the
Right,
work.
yeah, it's sort of a,
We just need to be on the same page.
Oh, agreed.
Find
so
out.
we'll check. So my second question is, and this is always a issue, so IT and cables and terminations, and where is the demarcation of what the CM provides or their electrical subcontractor versus what your IT provides? So your current...
we're basing it on raceways and boxes.
Right, but I think what was in the pre-bond was all the cabling, everything.
Well, the pre-bond, the intent of the pre-bond was to identify the overall needs of the project, and not necessarily
Well,
who's
what
doing
I'm
what.
reading, and we can talk about this, but outline of electrical scope for contractor pricing includes cabling in here. So I'm
Okay.
assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys have the cabling and we should correct
I
that.
don't know that we ever even discussed it at elementary.
Well, it's right in,
I'm
yeah,
not.
yeah.
That's what I mean, is we did not go, yeah, we're not doing this, so that.
Okay.
In the high school, we had a different conversation where the school was dealing with it. In the
This
high
is, yeah, this is existing.
We never, yeah.
And different. So I just want to be clear, because this is always a very contentious issue, because we talk about it and it changes 100 times before we go to bid, but let's figure out now what your IT wants to do. Do they want to do all the cabling for the 2 little additions here? Or would you rather have the electrical subcontractor do it all, and then your guy just does the tie downs?
I think what we originally discussed was that it's more complex if we're doing it ourselves when you're already doing the additions, that there were some advantages. That's my recollection of a prior discussion. Jason, I'm sure, would
Where the
know
work
better
is
than I.
limited to those areas.
It's really not, yeah, it's not a huge scope limit. The gym's not getting anything, so it's really the kindergarten area that we're talking about.
Right, we're adding
So
wire.
we'll verify with Jason?
In the gym. Yeah, we can
Before you-
verify, but I think that was the discussion.
Did you meet Jason last week?
I did,
Okay.
yes.
Can you can call him? Or
Yep.
Or, yeah, or if you want to copy Greg or I, we can put him to you.
You're ahead of me early on that, say, by owner, huh?
You want to talk a little bit about video and cable TV?
Cable TV.
Yes.
Still have that? I'm not kidding.
That is a valid question. I mean, one of the, in terms of the communications utility conduits, one of them would be for cable television. But there is a question of how much cable television is needed? 0. Okay.
I mean, that's my perspective.
And that does not surprise me at all. We see more and more of it being over the internet and not by the cable company. Yeah. Okay.
And then the other question is to the sound amplification. Do we want to associate a number of classrooms with that system to get a price, or?
So we have existing portable systems,
We
don't
have
we?
portable systems that cover all the current classrooms.
So I think the issue was in the new spaces, particularly those
Right.
pre-K spaces.
Yep. So
the
accommodate it.
install.
So you want speakers in the ceilings that,
If we can do that, yes, that would.
and do you have the cut sheet on your existing system we can get so we can make sure we can get it?
Yeah, we'll
Or
find it.
just take a photo or?
Yep.
Well, let's see, I veered away from my list, and
I
I
know.
shouldn't have done that. Intercommunication and paging, our understanding is that those systems are by owner. I just want to verify that.
Phone and
Sorry,
PA?
what page
Sound
are you
system
on?
by,
Phone and PA, I'm on the page 3.
They are carried in owner costs.
Okay.
Yes.
So all new classroom spaces to have sound amplification speakers.
And I guess
We are
that's,
upgrading our phone system, but we are carried costs to do that.
I'm sorry?
We are updating our phone system as
Okay.
a part of this project, but we have carried the costs in our owner costs to do that.
Okay. And is PA, and PA is going to be part of that?
Correct.
Because it's going to be all one integrated system?
Correct.
Okay.
But what about speakers in the corridors? Because the phones are only in the classrooms, so sometimes.
That was carried in the cost that Jason
Okay.
provided.
Okay. So,
Okay.
good.
Which also makes sense, because they really, it works better. Personally, I think the best person to deal with PA is to have it part of the telephone system, because otherwise you have a intercommunication vendor and
Tell
a
us
phone
about
vendor, and they're pointing fingers at one another, and what about gymnasium sound system?
I'm assuming that is something,
Is that
you
a,
guys were, the sound system or anything in the gym.
I don't think there was any specific conversation
Yeah, we
about
didn't
it.
really ever talk about that, actually, to be honest. That's something we'll have to
But would it
look
be
into.
useful? Yes.
Yeah.
well, so, I believe at the high school you have something that's like a portable cart today. There are permanently installed speakers.
Right.
We
Probably not.
very commonly see something like that, especially in an elementary school. You can have a presentation, you can have a microphone, you know, you basically
As long
just
as the
plug that
speakers
into
are
your.
adequately sized and balanced for the space, it works great. When they are undersized and or not balanced, as in potentially some spaces I visited within our schools, they're less than ideal for large functions.
Okay.
Set the bar so high.
We have to,
I would
we
put it,
have
I
to
would
bring
put
in
it slightly
portable
differently.
speakers.
Have they ever worked well, in my experience? Never.
Well, I've only had a year, and we have to bring in additional systems for graduation when
Right.
we use the gymnasium because it's not adequate. I mean, we might be able to build on the existing, but
Well, I feel like we're always keeping our fingers crossed. So, add that too. So where do we go from there on that issue? Talk to,
sounds like that would be another alternate.
For the gym?
Gymnasium sound system?
Yeah. Or we could just review, I mean, I know we had allowances for equipment and furniture, and
I don't think that one's on the
it wasn't
list.
on there, yeah, okay.
I don't recall. I never saw it.
That,
About the AV in classrooms would be short throw projectors and interactive displays. Would be phased out.
It's already existing.
right, so
What we do is
I brought a,
New rooms would get short throws and be wired.
just a sort of generic classroom layout where we have a projector that's wall-mounted and projects down onto a whiteboard. We have a teacher station with conduits and infrastructure to get from the source, which is here, to the projector, which is on the wall. And the projectors themselves are owner furnished, is that correct? And we're going to be providing the conduits and the pathways for the cabling.
That's strictly in new addition. It doesn't, there's no issues with existing gym. There was at one point, there was a note, new marker boards in existing classrooms.
Chalkboards that were.
Chalkboards
Replace
are
chalk
coming
with
off.
whiteboards.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
None of this has to happen in existing, just chalkboard off. Whiteboard.
Sean and Meredith, this quick question while we're on AV. In the gym, is there any utility or use for that in teaching?
I think more for full school
It'd be
gatherings.
more like assemblies and that sort of thing,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
But is that something we should consider?
In terms of electrical, we should consider it. I think it's something that could be easily installed later. It's, we have a system in the junior high cafeteria, for example. The electrical piece would be helpful if that was there in the gym so that we could do that.
Or a screen and a projector, yep.
Push button, drops down, nicely enclosed, protected
Yep.
from flying objects.
Basketball cage around it, or whatever you need.
Okay.
That's the only space well, I guess we'll have the cafeteria.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'd prioritize that first.
Right.
The gym would be our second.
Yep.
Really?
Could I intrusion
I know, right?
detection, access control, we have the doors that you want on card readers.
Right, and the intrusion
Yeah.
detection,
By owner.
if you're right.
Yep.
This was the easy one.
Do this with someone.
Well, it's the
can.
longest day of the
We
year,
can.
Russ, that's why we planned.
Right.
That's
We did talk about, though, when we scheduled the 4 o'clock meeting, so if we want to take a couple minutes and send a sheet around, give people the opportunity to take a break, we could certainly do that and order in pizza from next door or nearby.
Keep going, all right,
I'm fine. Hey,
that's fine.
everybody else is. The board's ready.
Make us go faster.
Right?
All right. So, here we go.
Everybody takes
Oh, yeah, you can get-
So we're talking about
To the
both
field.
the PE and.
Before we move on, just a high-level question, this is, I guess, in part, this is directed at Sean and Meredith as well, is that, this, as we had those couple of hot days last week, or the week before, I can't remember which it was, anecdotally, I just heard lots of aches and pains about how hot it is. I think this is the south wing, or, Sean, you would know.
It's the back side of the building because you get so much direct light
Right.
during the afternoon.
And again, I'm old school New England. I sweat it out, and we did when we were kids. But a couple parents kept kids home those days. So in all of this, we've gone over so much, and it's been a long time since we've gone over this. Was there any consideration to airflow, methods of venting, or that we can improve upon this situation at all, or is this? I'm not talking air conditioning, but.
Just air circulation in
Yeah,
general.
was that,
We don't have the budget to move the sun, so.
we could make the school year shorter, I suppose that's a cheap method, but, so we're not getting into the heat, but,
I guess that's a question for you, Hank, in terms of the ventilation you're describing. It's not going to solve a 90-degree humid hot day with sun
The
coming
gym?
from the back.
The gym would, but the other ventilation, the dedicated ventilation systems will not. It's actually less air than you typically get.
really.
Yeah, I mean, you pull shades and plug in fans, and unfortunately, and you drink a lot of water.
Well, you will have better windows and insulated walls in the additions.
One thing we have done is sun shades on the exterior that shade the sun in the hot summer days, but it's an added cost that we didn't have in.
On the new part, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That new part's not gonna get the kind of sun that you have.
Oh, you're talking about the.
Talking about
The
existing.
existing room.
Oh,
yeah.
Down by the,
Yeah.
okay, down by the sprinkler entrance, that.
Yeah,
yeah,
that
okay.
end that just sits and bakes.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But your addition.
Let's say you'll get a little bit of shade from the gym, right? That will relieve some of the.
Well, the sun's so high, I don't think this mass will really.
It's also, now it traps air in that whole.
That's the problem. It heats up and it doesn't. It takes a day or two to cool out.
Ceiling fans, they've done in the
Saw
past.
that over in Newton, actually.
Ceiling fans.
Another thing we added.
Yes.
I don't even know where that begins,
Yeah, I'm not suggesting it was part of the scope of this project, but we considered it as an issue.
A lot of the schools that I've seen with us doing assessments have the R2D2, the indoor conditioners with the
Right,
hoses
right,
going to
with
the
the
windows,
hoses
and
that
it's,
go
I
out
don't know if they
windows.
buy it under piece of equipment or what.
Yeah, and that's
but-
certainly something we do for, like, our summer programs.
Okay,
Those
yeah.
are things that we put in place
Yeah.
in limited rooms, and we
Yeah.
vent them out,
To the
appropriate
window, yeah.
spaces, windows or
Yeah.
wherever's accessible. But, I mean, really, we have so few days, fortunately, we have so few
Yeah.
days that are like that, that we make the best of it.
You get a few in the spring and you get a few in September.
Right.
All right.
All right, so,
Well, it is one of the things that ductless units can allow you to selectively.
Yep.
Maybe
Yeah.
not in every room, but selectively put in.
You're right, and I just did a retrofit for a school, a small school that ends up being one condensing unit on a roof and 3 different heads in each classroom. As long as they're all in cooling or all in heating, that can be cooler than this room. And it's fairly economical. to install and purchase. It's not a lot, but. Can handle it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of times the schools will just buy it and do it on their own if they got the cheapest way.
So ready for the junior senior high, all right.
The easy one.
Yes. So quickly, the crew met last week on site to review existing conditions and walk through the space again. So we've done some minor tweaks to the plan. Specifically in this receiving area here with the mechanical, electrical, we felt it best with the shipping and receiving with the existing grades and where they wanted the loading dock to flip those two things. So we actually have shipping and receiving here. The laundry we combined because the janitorial as well as the kitchen needed laundry. So rather than have two separate 1-hour rated rooms, we're just doing one room that accommodates both. We have put back in the uniform storage, so Meredith got that info, so we've drawn in those cages that they specified, so that's back in. And all the square footage of this addition is actually a little bit under what the bond had, so we didn't add any square feet there. They looked at all of the IT and electrical, so this electrical room will remain as the school is renovated, but then it will be decommissioned once this new electrical and this electrical room are done. So the IT, workroom, office, data, all are grouped in this location. And then one thing we'll have to look at some point with special ed this fall, and they're back, is trying to keep these existing shear walls in this location, this sped multi-sensory area. We're trying to keep a wall here, so they still have the use of that whole space, but if we can accommodate their needs, keeping that wall will help structurally a little bit.
There's no door between those spaces, correct?
We actually have one.
Okay.
We put one in,
Okay.
thinking that they would need to, yeah. A
Yeah.
door is fine, taking the wall.
No, understood. I think
Yeah.
as long as there's a door, it should be fine, but we can confirm.
And then we did, because of that small change there, we did reorient this space here a little bit. So the dark room, so we'll have to look at the art room again with the art teacher, but all the pieces are still there. Other than that, I don't think anything else really has changed. So on to engineering. And while we're passing these out, one question for the schematic set, we had been showing lockers, but now that we're getting to the details, how big lockers, how many lockers do you want?
What lockers are we reusing?
Exactly. That would be good to know, because that could be a big cost.
While we're prepping for mechanical, the loading dock is now on the documents. We've had some different conversations. We ever confirmed an actual loading dock is needed? Maybe I've conflicted with what I had heard, but at different times. They don't get a lot of tractor trailer loads.
No, I think we resolved that it was not needed. Yeah. That it was level.
You can lose one and still have one.
Here,
Yes.
the loading dock?
Yep. Is not needed. Yep. Good. Cheaper.
But yeah, I think they have a lot of up and down ramps because they were trying to accommodate that.
Do you want to just make a note? We'll just double check that. I think that's true, that it's very infrequent, that it's full-size tractor trailer. But it's still
Oh, you get the truck with the loading.
yeah.
It adds some complexity to allow what you're trying to do in order to try to accommodate a
I
load
understand
for
that.
a truck to come into it and then be able to feed the building. all yours.
Pass these around. That's proposed mechanical layout in the new equipment room, and then that's
Oh,
the
that's the temp-
temporary,
Yep.
temporary that I tried to come up with a footprint for what I
Oh,
thought.
good. You got a dimension as well.
Yeah.
What we should do at some point is scan this in, we get it to Chris, and either put a piece of tape on the floor, something that shows here's 12 feet that we've taken out of that room, and make sure it makes sense. We talked about it, but sometimes it's good to actually see it. Multisensory.
Yes, it is. Okay. So starting with fire protection, the mechanical room, which you'll see when it circulates around, has a designated area. The new mechanical room for a sprinkler. Looking at an 8-inch right now and a 4-inch domestic water entrance at the same location. Again, with the square footage, currently, as Tony was saying, 52,000 square feet per zone. I had in the assessment that I think this was like 55,000 on a single zone, so it's already deficient as far as code-wise meeting an FDA. So there's definitely got to be two zones serving the building. I brought up, this is the building that I mentioned about a sprinkler assessment due to the complexity of the building and how the existing system's laid out, and that's, you know, it is what it is, if you want to go that route.
So could we get like a Carter sprinkler or someone to come in to take a look, or?
Yeah, I had
Superior.
Superior
Superior.
already contacted and
Oh.
did all that. I thought I
Okay.
copied you on it, maybe I
Probably
didn't.
did.
Adam, or
Yep.
so it's definitely less than 5,000. He thought it'd be like 3,000, 3,500 to do an assessment of it. And
Okay.
it could save a lot of money with this system if it was done.
We were in discussion for that, so
Yep.
makes sense.
One question in looking at this that would need to be resolved, is there any specialty fire suppression systems like for the IT? Is anything required like a clean agent, or is it, I'll need to know that as design goes on.
Upper IT, science lab.
And construction phasing, I've discussed quite a few scenarios with John, and it still looks like right now that if we can maintain, relocate that one and maintain a temporary service to
Try
the,
to keep
yeah.
the line as it goes in now, maintain, although we'll have to take apart and reconnect.
Right.
Maintain that as our temporary until the new system is up and that addition is sufficient to put water. We looked around the building, tried to find other places we could do it, but the grades down the backside of the building
Yeah.
do not make it so we could put a new water entrance in some place that exists. So still, we'll continue to try to look, but I think that's gonna be the goal in the short term, is to
The electrical.
And then obviously abandon it because they have to move the water and sewer anyway. So with that in phasing, and when I was there last week, I looked at the gym layout, and by the stair, by the elevator, it looks like that's how the gym is being fed. So when they rezone this, probably the gym could get on with the new addition zones, and then the existing building would be on a separate zone. That would be that'd be an easy tie-in without any major work. And so most of the sprinkler work would be in the 65 and 25-year building. Plumbing systems, right now, as I mentioned, bringing in the 4-inch. That's I think what
Just
that's what
before we, leave the sprinkler, There was a freeze-up this past winter with I believe, a sprinkler main in the gym.
Year before last.
So the year before last already. So is there anything we need to do as part of this project to address that, add insulation, or?
I
It's a-
will need to find that out.
I got up
think
in
it was
in
addressed at
there.
the time.
Yeah.
Okay,
I got up in that space.
Okay.
I was able to get through an access hatch, and it's above the insulation in that cold area. And they converted a
The glycol?
glycol
Yeah.
loop, so it's a
Okay.
17-gallon system right now, serving that. I mean, it is what it is right now.
so it's glycol though, okay.
Yeah. And it's checked annually, the tag had it checked, sprinkler. So the new water service will serve the domestic water plant, the cold water to the building, boiler plant, and rest of the facilities. Piping via copper and a mix of PEC is for domestic. And it'll be insulated per local code, IECC, International Conservation Code. And other, as I do my site work, other areas that I know domestic water piping insulation missing or badly damaged, I'll add into areas of re-insulating to match existing, to at least give some insulation value versus leaving a bare pipe. The domestic hot water heater, I guess we haven't got an absolute decision on LP or oil, but I'm moving ahead with LP on this project. And in the design, if we find out it's different, I'd have to know pretty quick, because it changes equipment. Because right now, if it's where we have LP gas, I was proposing 2 new condensing gas-fired water heaters. That'd be
Can we
Was
just?
the concern about space for tanks, wasn't that part of the overarching issue, and so have we resolved that?
I threw out a email on my shot at how many tanks in a footprint,
Right.
and I think it was like 20 by 25, but it needs to be confirmed.
So I mean, I can't,
It doesn't have to be
you
in
can
the-
tell me whether it fits the footprint.
Yeah,
Well, we can find a spot for it.
Right, but is it?
it doesn't have to be in that
A little
configuration
bit.
either, it can be a little bit.
So, I mean, the mechanical room is here. We could stick something over in here. Has to be, what, 10 feet from the
10 feet
building?
from building, 10 feet from property
Property
line.
line too.
From property, so it could be, I'm not sure what that little guy is, but it could be right in here. Easily.
This is above or under?
This one.
Under.
You have the utility plan there, Ingrid?
This whole area, I mean, 10 feet's not, could be right in here, but to get the piping
Yeah,
would be a ways.
that's the problem. I don't know how far they'd wanna run the tanks to get to the boiler room. I like your lower spot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of utilities in that area. It looks
Okay, do we
like.
need Brad to look at this too, mosquito?
Yeah, so
be
he
part of
sent the email to Brad. Okay. So they're working on it, but I guess, is the oil tank, we're going over it with our addition, right?
That one's going.
Yeah, so
No
that
matter
one's
what.
gone.
So we're
So-
either
so
putting
we're
a new
in
oil
healthy.
tank and have to find room for that,
Or
or
we're
we're
having-
putting
yeah.
Someone
propane
putting
tanks and we'll
propane
find
for-
room.
We're gonna do propane.
The
We'll find the place.
Yeah, I mean, the
for
propane's big benefit on this because the makeup air unit, I'd
Yeah.
be specifying as gas.
We
and-
can't put oil in.
No.
Just can't. That would
We
kill
gonna run
me.
into that sewer line? If we
That's
don't,
what Preston's saying about the
This-
amount of utilities,
No,
a lot of
the-
stuff.
with the first
Oh.
location you picked, right there. If, we're gonna have to go underground back to the building, are we gonna run into that sewer main?
Sewer line, there's new underground electrical, water.
It's all new though.
Okay.
It's all new, right? So,
The sewer's
they're-
the
they
one
can
that
dig
we
it at
have
the
to.
same time.
They're underground systems back there.
There's also state.
They gotta know.
There,
Yep.
I don't get, that's, a potential area that floods a lot through there, or is it a one-time thing? Somebody was mentioning that it actually came up under the parking lot.
Well, yeah, on the
Or is it-
Mother's
10
Day
years, yeah.
storm.
Yeah, it's a,
That was
okay.
a, what, 100-year storm.
But, all right, I'm just saying underground
It-
tanks and,
You
you
know,
know.
hold down pat, you
Yeah.
deal with it.
Well, do they have to be underground?
They don't have to be.
I mean, they could be above ground back there. I mean, that'd be a
If it's
lot
in, you
cheaper.
lose vaporization space.
It's, yeah, that's what I figured I figured the loss of that on that footprint, so if they're underground, you might be able to get less tank.
So you've got a bigger tank size because of
More-
vaporization.
Right.
You figured them above ground.
Yeah, because I figured it at like 4 degrees below zero or something for what they get for BTUs out of it.
Yeah.
So
So we
basically,
need-
this is where they have to go.
Underground with tanks.
Or add a vaporizer, you know, it's
So we need to close the loop with Brad Mosquito. It
Yes.
another
sounds
thing to
like
worry
we're-
about.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that creates a problem down the road.
Yeah.
So Ingrid, you said you'd rather avoid oil. What's, again, high level, what's the issue there? We'd rather go with?
Energy efficiency and
Yeah, big-
longevity of
The
equipment.
cost of the tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monitoring.
You-
Environmental.
Normally you can get a company, if you're gonna purchase propane from them, they will give you the tanks.
Gotcha. You mentioned that before, so that's the inclination is to go that way.
Yeah.
If you go with an underground, we still have inspections and licensing that have to go on. If you get rid of the oil tank, then we don't have that same.
So how many again? Like 4,000?
I think I had
Five, 2,000?
1,000.
1,000.
I gotta get a better feel for the load in the building.
Yeah, but
Was it?
as a,
Yeah.
At this point, we're just trying to find that close enough
Footprint.
spot.
And, now that I'm recalling, we mentioned there wasn't really much of a response to it, I think, a couple meetings ago about across the street. Is that just a non-starter?
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you'd have to,
Put the propane across the street?
yeah.
Too far?
That's,
And there's a
that's a
huge
route, isn't
water
it?
main.
That's Route
State.
108.
I mean, you'd
which
be
means you get into
crossing,
state
you need an
requirements
easement.
and all of that.
Oh, so it's- yeah, I think,
So it's a non-starter.
yeah.
Okay.
But you might be able to, I don't know if it's 10 feet you might be able to stick it right in here.
No smoking.
That'd be easy for them to bill, as long as it's, 10 feet's like that, so.
Fair.
So that being said, looking at 2 condensing gas-fired domestic water heaters, independent from the boiler plant, so summer use, winter use, it doesn't matter, they run at maximum efficiency. The piping, most of the new mains will be run down the quarter, be supplying to the kitchen. Light renovated areas, it will be tying back into systems. The major renovated areas, it will be, right now, anticipating all new piping as part of the scope of the domestic and hot water. And phasing, right now looking at moving the water entrance into that sensory area, multi-sensory temporarily. The domestic water maker, existing are indirect, so those would be located in there, and there'll be a temporary boiler that will feed those. And right now, I'm not supplying, in the design intent, any summer water heater. They have a gas-fired one, but to relocate that there, I think you'd be better off going with electric if we go that route, find that you need hot water through the summer.
We will need some.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll figure in electric instead of trying to hook up a whole gas-fired one over there temporarily. It's just too much.
Oh,
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
thinking potentially gymnasium locker room
Yeah,
has some uses during the summer, but also just for summer programming needs.
and cleaning and
Yeah.
housekeeping.
Yeah, but if you're gonna size it for the locker room, it's gonna end up being a pretty good size.
Well, that's I mean, the showers right now are
stuck.
stuffed,
But the showers aren't.
they're stuffed with
used or
storage,
are they
yeah.
used?
In the summer?
They're-
Yeah.
Well, right now they're not used at all, but
No.
presuming that, with some of the changes that are being made, they might be. I mean,
This would just be
What we're
temporary.
talking about is for the.
Oh, the temporary, sorry.
This is all about
Lost.
temp.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah. But the summer one would only be for one summer.
So
I mean,
scratch
till-
it.
till the next,
Right,
till-
right.
till-
Scratch it.
Yeah, he's gonna need hot water, but probably a small amount. If you gotta pick up showers.
Sorry, I lost the.
I thought I-
No, it's the
first
footprint, the area in the
Okay.
room
It's
that,
small.
yeah.
I'm in the long.
Yeah.
She's getting
but
delirious.
Don't, you're not
Hungry.
gonna run them.
Yeah, no,
But
I,
you have a little, you gotta have some hot water.
Yeah.
so you-
yeah, so typically it's a 40 or 60 gallon.
Yeah.
But I'll just spot
So
some.
you don't have to bank it or anything.
No, you're right. So, in the two that I selected, 119 gallon water heaters each, and they, the 400 and some odd, 450,000 BTUs. They're large, but I based it on the full kitchen, the meals, and the use of the gym and locker rooms at this point, so I think it's cheap money to have that. Would it make sense, since we're going over, you're at 119 gallons each, which makes it an ASTM rated tank, which under 99 doesn't have to be? I think it's over 119, isn't it? That's why it's 119.
Yeah, it's got more to
And two-
do, I
and
think, with the
200
BTUs.
and
It's
200,000.
199,000
Right,
BTUs.
so that was my question is. So these tanks will be ASME? Yeah, but they won't be because they're, because they're over 200,000 BTUs.
But are we better off to put in 3 and get down below?
We
There's
can.
a big difference in price between those two tanks.
Well, right, so the two, 400,000 each might be 15 to 20,000 each, or something like that. And the other multiple ones might be 12,000 each. So you'd have to kind of do the math to see if 4 below ASME versus the 2.
Right.
And then footprint and stuff. I mean, I can look into that, but.
We'd also look at the footprint.
That's the
whether or
other-
not we have it, because one of the options
Right.
you have is, at this point, we don't know for sure what we're doing with the locker rooms. And if you set this place up before, so they have the option of putting them in later if they so choose, maybe a better scenario for them if they need them, as opposed to going with 2 big ones, and that's. which
Well, I
is
mean,
the-
there is a huge difference in the price to
Agreed.
buy a tank, and I'm also looking at, let's be honest, at some point, the tank's gonna be replaced. I mean, it's just nature of equipment that fails eventually. That tank, will cost the district a lot more to replace it down the road than it does if it's a non-stamped tank. And it's not a safety issue at that point, you know.
So we're asking, I guess, essentially to look at within the footprint, is there a way to do it with the smaller tanks, and I guess.
Well, the tanks would be the same size, it'd still be 119 gallons, but
BTU
BTUs
fire
would be
rate's down.
199,000 versus 200,000, let's say below that, and if that's the case, I'd be looking at 4, adding 2 more tanks than to what we have. That's fine, I mean, if you want to, that's fine.
I'm just concerned, I look at the
understand.
long-term maintenance of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's always, it's great if, 10 years down the road and it's past its warranty and if we pop a leak in one of them, and I have to come in and say, hey, oh, by the way, the tank's 25,000.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I looked into that on this size water heater, and it was like a $10,000 or $12,000 adder for ASME tank, and so it was like 8,000 to 18,000. So
It's substantial, though.
it is substantial, yeah. So,
But also the whole
but-
need of 4 tanks is you're building for the future.
Well, I'm building based on that locker room's gonna be used, and shower's gonna be going on. And if, I mean,
Which we don't know at the moment, because we don't know for sure, we're putting all the partitions and we're changing. the
right,
locker rooms.
as they are, they're not gonna be used because they're gangs, so.
And that, it's one of those things that, when we start talking about what are we doing in that locker room, a cost of that may be these just say the tank's $10,000, easy math. We're adding 2 extra tanks, so not only is it the partitions, but we've done A, B, C, and D because of that, and you're able to make some decisions.
So, I mean, I like that. I'll design around
Let's
2
see what
tanks
we have
and
for
make
room.
sure I got footprint connections for 2 future, so.
Good compromise?
Or
Yeah, I
3.
mean, if we can still stay under that number, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, wait a minute, I gotta read.
I say, or maybe 3.
Because it's really,
No,
it's all
right,
based on your connected load is what it comes down to.
Right, and I don't have the calculation, I went through the calculation of everything. So, you're gonna be at least 3 you're correct, at least 3 tanks. So, and then I'll need additional ones, so I'll figure it out.
We just don't wanna make it so that you can't put, if you're not gonna put, that
Right.
it doesn't fit.
Right.
You'd be prepared so you can deal accordingly. So just see what you're dealing with, because you may find that 3 non-rated are, less expensive and easier to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, and it adds redundancy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, so-
another benefit.
Good point.
Did I cover my salary yet?
You wish.
We're gonna see all this anyways, Greg.
Okay, so we pretty much talked to that. So sanitary rainwater, existing under slab, under the impression that's gonna be scoped as well as sanitary, I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. Above slab, and if it's in good condition, we plan to reuse other than relocation of bathrooms that you'd have to jackhammer to tie into. Above slab will be reused where possible. Again, inspect the piping systems. And I'll be doing that during the site work. Sanitary and waste vent piping, planning on PVC with cast iron, sanitary in the kitchen. In this case, probably put them in a boiler room too. New rainwater piping will be PVC. Cast iron drops perhaps is what I usually use around areas like music, insulated just to keep noise down because PVC can be noisy in the walls.
Have you looked at the fiber, the foam core?
Yeah, we've.
Because it's a little quieter than the regular PVC.
Yeah, you're right.
It's less money than cast.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud.
Yeah. You can look at that, you know, do some inquiring. Specialty drainage will be provided, acid waste for science, things like that. Dark room, I'd like to know a little bit more about whether the equipment,
Yes.
whether we're gonna have to have
Yes.
a silver nitrate
Yes.
recovery system and all that.
I
and-
believe
and-
they're using all the chemicals. It's a regular darkroom is when we.
What are you
send
looking
them.
for on the specialty drainage? What type? Like a fuse seal kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think that Polypro in Newbury, that if I'm not mistaken, has the same manufacturer has that same acid waste and different chemical.
Okay.
So keeping the rainwater systems and roof drains as they are. If there's any rain leaders that have to relocate it because of walls, that the offsets can be made quite easily with the existing systems. And again, same thing, depending on roof design for the new roofs, whether there'd be overflow drains or scuppers. Scuppers are cheaper. Overflows are double the price.
Are we looking for any gases in the site
I'd have to look at the notes. So
Yeah.
we've sent you the notes. They're in the staff review meetings. We've covered this.
Yeah, I looked through that, didn't I?
listed that occurred.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, I didn't see it.
But I think yes in the high school, no in the middle school. I think, but
The other thing,
We had fume hoods only in the high school labs.
any compressed air or anything like that as well? I think
I believe
compressed
so.
air,
No.
we'll need compressed air for the dust collector, probably.
Right.
So,
The
yeah,
tech
only
idea.
in the shop area.
So would the air compressor be our design or owner purchased, or, because the last one I did was owner purchased and it didn't really work out so well.
So that you have the yeah,
You remember.
exactly. Yes. Yeah.
So part of it.
Yes.
Ingrid, there's a note on the architectural drawings on the roof plan about some questions regarding verifying number of drains, whether
Yep.
they're adequate.
Yep.
That'll be something that they.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we will do as a team.
So, again, this fixtures, are just like the elementary, the same. I'll put floor drains in all new bathrooms, but I mean, if some of the existing bathrooms don't have them, I mean, it is what
We're not
it is.
injecting them with the
No.
system, it's not changing.
The floor drains all. The underlav keyed hose bib for washing. Other fixtures are gonna be new janitor sink. I think there'd be an acrylic shower in the janitor, and in the nurses.
Nurse, sure.
Some stainless steel sinks, eye wash, emergency, bottle fill station, I saw in the notes. Washer dryer, clothes washer hookup. And are they standard residential type, do we know, or are they gonna be?
They're
or-
in the notes too. I think we have commercial. Yeah. The kitchen, I think, is regular, but I think the janitorial is the commercial. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's another set that's reminding me.
It's a
for
residential
special ed.
in
Yeah,
the special ed collaborative classroom space, the end of that hallway near the
Yeah.
So,
consumer life science room.
so the kitchen and special ed are residential units, is what you said?
Yeah.
See, we have one laundry room that's for both, kitchen and janitorial. So one set is residential style and the other set is commercial style. But there is somewhere in this area, we need to find a washer dryer, cause they are sharing it with them, so.
Yeah, I think it was
Kinda
going
lost it.
right in here at the end of that hallway.
Oh, right here, yep, I see it right there. Yep, the two little,
The two little
Look at
things.
those.
And that's only residential.
yes.
Yeah, so, okay.
And that is appliances by owner, installed
Well,
by GEC,
if it-
hooked up by them.
The single commercial washer that we just did I think it had a 3-inch discharge, and it had to go into a separator tank, and then into the floor drain. And the commercial dryer had to have a visible lint trap, and then it went out the wall. So, yeah. And I think even the residentials had the lint traps too, so visible. That was
A lot of times you see the higher end residential being used. When you go to commercial, it does change quite a bit. It's also pretty pricey, so I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what you're
That's
washing. or
custodial,
doing.
it's mop heads, it's,
I'll
you
look
tell
into
me.
it and get you a
Okay.
specification.
Where we go?
It's already on my note.
Okay.
And will you check with Linda also then just to verify that it's fine with residential? Or would you like me to?
I can be happy to.
So I guess that's pretty much it. It's basically same manufacturers and same type of fixtures. Now, Tony brought up a good point. What about faucets like in the labs? It's sensor, manual? Do you have any battery operated?
I thought we had this did we have this
I
conversation?
didn't see anything in the notes that I
Okay.
recall, but I don't know, you might have, but
Oh. And you didn't have anything in your original suggestion?
Well, in the labs, frankly, for the purposes you're using them for, manual is probably better. In the bathrooms,
single handle.
sensors would make sense,
Right.
yeah, just one.
But your last, like, page 30 and 31.
Yeah, but yeah, I didn't differentiate on that. Let me check the discussion really quick.
You need 200 mils in a beaker, guessing if you're, with the sensor. It's tricky.
Okay, so censored faucets
In the bath,
in the bathrooms,
but,
yes.
I mean,
Okay, so you said yes to sensor in the bathroom then?
I
Okay.
think that would be ideal in the bathroom from a,
Different opinions on whether they
Yeah.
like them or people don't like them.
Any opinions?
I have all kinds of opinions, but,
I would defer to you, Ben.
I like sensors for the fact that you don't have to touch surfaces. What I find in the long run with those is that we have problems. Failures, things like that, and and it really also depends on the brand that you put in. It makes a huge difference. So
Yeah, I would say.
there's also a very big difference in price. I'm not opposed to not having sensors, let's put it that way. But I
Nurses
wasn't
like
here for
sensors.
the last multiple years of going through what people wanted, so.
I don't think we got that specific. Again, I would say in the
We
science
didn't,
labs,
yeah.
non-sensors
Right.
make sense, obviously, and in the kitchens and those pieces. And the bathrooms, I would defer to Greg. Again, my piece is, from a nurse's perspective, certainly, and I'm not that I'm speaking for our nurses, but they would always say
People are washing their hands at all.
sensors. They would always say
Yeah.
sensors, just
That's a
from
good
that
one. Yes, you're
health
right about that one.
standpoint, but-
Okay.
I mean,
So-
sensors are for a health standpoint are much better.
Everything else.
I don't care either way, to be honest with you, in the bathrooms at this point.
So are we thinking faucets and flush valves?
What's that?
Faucets and flush valves?
Flush valves, I definitely like,
Okay, so,
sensor type.
so faucets, flush valves, in all areas sensor.
Oh, lab's gonna be handle type, and, obviously kitchen won't be sensor.
No, yeah, okay, but I meant like staff bathrooms and they're all sensor the same.
Getting to the nitty-gritty.
I know,
Right?
that,
Not cleaning.
You can go another step, battery or electric.
if battery's what we've been, but it's,
Throw in
or
one
we
more.
do the solar,
I'm not a big fan of the sensors, but if you're looking for reducing cranks in the
Yeah, in the
bathroom,
wheel.
probably having the sensors and not having the flooding and leaving the faucet open and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we've been also specified the ones with the little turbine in it, so as the water flows, it charges and keeps it charged up, so.
Do you have dryers in here too, or is it just going with paper?
Say that again, Mike.
Hand dryers, yeah.
Hand dryers or paper?
We typically do the dryers,
Dysons?
accelerators. Well, if you want Dysons, it's your building.
Well, Dysons are more efficient, energy-wise.
Do they stand up to school usage?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Dyson Blade is the one that
Already ready.
All right.
But you pay for those too.
Yes, you do.
pay a lot more for those Dysons, but they also work quite well, at least in my experience of them.
And it would be, again, we're talking sort of environmentally or energy efficiency wise to
Also for
replace
maintenance
those with
point.
paper and from a
Paper
maintenance standpoint.
Find itself all over the place and you
Mhm.
have to replace it.
So electric dryers, both elementary and the high school?
The new additions at the elementary.
Yeah, I think so.
Electric Dyson also.
Can I ask a silly question? I don't need the answer tonight,
Yeah.
but if we're talking multiple bathrooms, all electric, and
Something that's between like $500 and $1,000 a piece.
Yeah, they're not cheap,
Oh, no.
but you start looking at things like paper good reduction, custodial time reduction, things like
What
that.
we're
all
talking about now, that's it.
play into that.
We'll go through that process and
Yeah, I mean,
Item we can
we need a
talk
per
about later.
unit
It
cost
doesn't-
and a total number of units both ways, and we
easier things
figure
to
it out.
deal with later.
The hard part is most of your paper vendors will give you the dispensers at no cost for paper goods.
Yes.
But they also know that you're going to be buying their paper goods because that's the only thing that fits.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a,
catch-22. No, those things are useful, I get. Just trying to alternates or
Currently on the
G,
senior high.
what's the vote, do you want to vote for an extra $200,000 capital? We have to have to review what the budget is.
and that's all calculatable.
Okay, onto the heating plant. Proposing Wiesmann condensing boilers. 3 right now, about 1,500 MBH each. Again, the boilers will have their own controls. These will be direct vented through the roof, non-masonry chimney system. The plant provide 180 water to the 180 degree water to match the existing system's design, and will provide 140 degree water to the additions would be low temp. And that will be done through a mixing valve in the boiler room. This setup allows the spring, fall, the condensing boilers can operate in condensing mode most of the time, and you get your most efficiency. The dead of winter, you'll be operating like a regular boiler, but you'll still be in a high efficiency, but not in the 90% that you do when you condense. Heating pumps, similar to the elementary, Taco manufacturer, proposing 4 building pumps, 2 to the existing building, and 2 will serve the new lead lag operation, which means one pump only runs at a time. The other one, the lag pump comes in if it fails, or they switch. And Taco will have the building appurtenances, expansion tanks would be based on Taco manufacturer.
What drives the 3 boilers?
Pardon?
What drives the number of boilers?
Well, I spoke to Greg a bit, but I was actually thinking 3 boilers when he mentioned that. And what that allows, if you design them, you could either design them like at 30% each or a little bit higher. So if one boiler trips out, 2 can still pretty much carry the load. It's roughly 80% of the time you're at 50% of capacity. So 2 boilers would carry the building while the other one get repaired. If you had 2.
So 2 could carry it easily if.
In this scenario.
Most of the time.
Most of the time,
50% capacity.
Right. But how condensing boilers work, you want them all firing at once. You want them down at the low temperature so they're condensing if possible, and then all 3 ramp up and down in sequence. But you can stage them as lead, and then the other boilers come on as well.
It provides the redundancy we currently don't have, and it's
Right,
more efficient.
you definitely don't have it now, and because that thing goes down there, and it is a little bit more, a little more costly, but it's a very, it's a design that's typical in a school, and that we use.
To help you out, I did 2 boiler rooms at Clayton before I came in. So we went from both having 2 boilers to both having 3 boilers. And just by updating the design, particularly at the high school, which was about 160,000 square feet, replaced the boiler plants in there, and first year energy savings was over 20,000 gallons. We had to go with heating oil there, we didn't have 20,000 gallons just because we could modulate fire boilers, keeping just to what the load necessary instead of heating a giant cavity of water. We save a ton of that. That's what these boilers are going to be able to do. So save energy in the long run. And haven't done any kind of calculations on it, but we're putting an addition on the building, which may turn around and come back and say, wait a minute, it didn't cost any more heat. And I'm not saying definitely that's the case, because the numbers haven't been calculated, but those are the kind of things you do realize. So there's energy savings, especially in the long run.
And it's going to be close, it would be a very noticeable savings, because this current boiler plant doesn't have a reset control.
Well, that's huge.
Right there.
What is that?
It's a 3-way mixing valve that blends return water in with the boiler water at times that you don't need to be supplying 180 degree water, so the boiler runs less.
So for instance, in that case boiler, I ran boilers, I ran boilers down to 125 degrees. So you don't need to maintain 180 degrees at
Less fuel.
55 degrees outside, so you save fuel. So it's just got tons of wonderful benefits.
Yeah,
It should be gas and condensing. It's even it has higher efficiency rates than you can get in any way.
But we still won't be in the 90s.
You can in the shoulder season.
Spring and
So,
fall.
right, so the new system, instead of having a traditional reset valve and 180 degree water, that 180 degree water portion of the building can actually be like Greg was saying, 125 to 30-degree water, and those boilers will be condensing. You know, then maybe in November, December, you start ramping up. So
You're still talking better efficiencies than you
Yeah.
get with oil, 'cause you.
And I mean, even though you're running 180 degrees to your existing sections of the building on days when it's less than 10 degrees out, you still have the new sections of the building that are probably only gonna need 150 degrees or 160 on those cold days. So your return water coming back to the boiler, when it blends, is still gonna be cooler. So you're down closer to those condensing rates in the boiler, which is gonna, it's definitely gonna be much more efficient than
That's where the efficiency
than an
is.
oil
Yeah.
boiler, absolutely.
And the control valves, in the controls portion, adding two-way control valves that you isolate when you're off instead of recirculating or whatever, then it pumps back up, back down on speed, the boilers run less, I mean, the whole thing's gonna be just a much more efficient operating building completely with the boilers and the controls and everything.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So, on the ventilation, the intent based on the assessment is that existing renovated areas that have rooftop energy recovery units, I believe there's 6 of them, will replace in kind based on the new manufacturer. The thought is that you get a transition curb that the unit sits on to match existing duct configuration. New duct coils will be installed with this system because the energy recovery units require tempering of air, so the coils will be replaced due to age and erosion from water and dirt going through the coils, because it winds back and forth and it wears away at the walls of the copper, so the coils are probably near junk. Existing exhaust fans was in here to be replaced. Lauren Cook is a typical manufacturer. I added here that in heavily renovated areas where there's energy recovery units being replaced, if the exhaust system at that point may be able to be tied into the exhaustive energy recovery unit and then eliminate the exhaust fan, making the system less complicated, less maintenance.
And more efficient.
More efficient, yeah, exactly. The gym ventilation is currently provided by 2 heating and ventilating, or H&V air handlers, and those will be completely rebuilt, just like the elementary school. The CAF ventilation will get a new rooftop air handler, and just like the scenario at the elementary school, that will work. That air handler for the CAF will work in conjunction with the makeup air unit and kitchen exhaust. And the makeup air for the kitchen exhaust hood will be gas-fired, so there's no heating coils.
So this cafeteria is more than a cafeteria too? It's a cafetorium? So they're using it because the stage is there, it's an auditorium, it's a multi-purpose space. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So the system will be able to operate independent. It doesn't have to operate with the kitchen, but it will provide additional makeup air when the kitchen woods are exhausting. No AC with this, just economize cooling.
What does economize cooling mean?
That you can introduce up to 100% of all the supply air just from outside on a nice dry day, and actually
When
get
it's
some
cooler outside than inside, you
yeah,
can use that outside air to free cool.
you get cooling effect from it. So the air handler will actually bring all of the supply air from outside. Typically, it runs with only partial outside air and return air.
Is there any benefit to a new ventilation system on days where you have humidity levels like we've seen lately?
Well, you get into something that's more expensive to have that. The economizer doesn't